Good evening, everybody. This is I'll call a meeting to order at 6 p.m. This is regular meeting for Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Tim Hale, are you on the phone? Stephanie Nowers. Here. George McKee. Yeah. Robert Yunt, are you on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Moki 2.
Here.
Jesse Sumner.
Here.
Tam Bovee. Here. Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to let you know I missed roll call, but I am here.
Okay, that's Mr. Hale calling in, so he's with us too. Anything members would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, I'd like to request that we pull OR 21-087. That's from public hearings for introduction on 9/7.
What ordinance is that? What?
That is additional funding for the Burma underpass.
Okay. Any objection to pulling that from introduction? Mr. Hale, Mr. Yan, any objection?
No, sir.
Okay, so that will be pulled
No, sir.
from introduction.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the consent agenda? Seeing none, are any other changes to the agenda? Okay. I'll just give the audience a little heads up. It appears Ms. Nowers will move to divide the road bond package and the sales tax after the close of the public hearing. Mr. Yant may follow up with a motion to postpone indefinitely the sales tax ordinance, just so you might be familiar with that. That'll be after the close of the public hearing. Okay, anything else on the agenda? Seeing none, we will proceed as the agenda. Barb Gerard, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Any reports? Any reports from the cities? Ms. Thompson, Mayor Thompson, you want to come forward? Then we'll have Mayor Vasilis here. I think the mayor of, there she is, Mayor Palmer is here too. Good evening, everybody.
You have the whole family tonight. So Virgie
Must be that
Thompson.
sales tax maybe, huh?
No, actually. Ha ha, you're funny. Virgie Thompson, Houston Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Assembly, and support staff. I wanted to remind you that Founder's Day is this coming Saturday. It starts at 6:30 with the parade, and the fireworks are at 10:30. I had a little bit of something that's been on my mind for a while, and I just wanted to share that. It says, we as councils and assembly members and mayors put our faith in support staff such as attorneys and clerks. A clerk's job is extremely important. It is their job to follow the public process set in Alaska Statute 44.62.310.312, the Open Meetings Act. They don't just willy-nilly decide to process the agendas to conduct meetings without the proper guidance. Their guides are our guides to follow the law. City and borough attorneys are given the governed body's backup. They research Alaska statute. They set forth in Title 29 Municipal Government. Title 29 is very clear on the process of the public notice. Our codes may differ in some areas, but we all follow the law. Chapter 25 Municipal Enactments clearly defines that an ordinance needs to look like, what it needs to look like, and the noticing process. I'm sure most of you feel the same as I. I encourage the public process. The city posts everywhere we can to notice the public on meetings and what actions are being considered at a meeting. We have an email list we share with residents as well who sign up. What is disheartening is when one is accused of not following the public process. Having public hearings after public hearings and then another public hearing, we as policymakers would never accomplish anything for our communities. I personally have no intention of knocking on every person's door requesting them to attend a meeting. If the public is not informed on what is going on in their community or surrounding areas, it is their own fault. We cannot force any person to become involved in their community. Therefore, expecting the business needing to be done cannot wait until they decide to educate themselves. Once again, I want to really thank the municipal clerks, the borough clerk, attorneys, and their support staff for all the work they do for their councils and assembly. We may not always agree, but I do thank you all.
Thank you. Let's see, who's next with the mayors? Edna, you or? Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Edna DeVries, the mayor of Palmer, where Alaska is at its best. And we are showing that off this week because on Friday, the fair starts, and Saturday, we'll have a great big parade downtown Palmer, and you're all invited. And maybe some of you even are going to have floats and partake. And as you know, school is starting, so we are just encouraging everyone to watch out for children and the school buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mayor Vasilla. And just so everybody knows, the Mat-Su Assembly helped the state fair last year with COVID money for $450,000 so they could make it a full year, then transition into this great fair. So welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Manager Brown, and Assembly. I'm Glenda Ludford, Mayor for the City of Wasilla. We are fulfilling our slogan, Wasilla is open for business. The Bear Paw Brewery is open for business in their new location on Railroad Avenue. Along with their specialty beers, they're serving wood-fired pizza, and it's really good. Coming soon, we have 3 bears opening a market and a 10-bay gas station. Firehouse Subs and Sudsy Salmon Car Wash, all located on Steen Commons Avenue next to Home Depot. We also have a 10,500 square foot restaurant with outdoor dining and entertainment area for special events located on Sun Mountain Avenue. Join us at the fair starting August 20th. We will be on the Red Trail. Imagine that. It's very appropriate. Come find out about our city and its future. September 20th, 2021, the dedication ceremony for the Charters of Freedom will take place at 11 a.m. at the Armed Forces Honor Garden at 100 Nelson Avenue. This will be a very historic event that you won't want to miss. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
How about the school district reports? Dr. Trainee, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it short. I know you have a long agenda. Quick update. I wake up every morning and I check the Coho run coming up the Little Sioux. That's one thing I watch. And then I check how many kids were coming up. They're very similar, kind of watching the radar for both things. So right now our sonar for kids is we have about 18,000 students registered for the start of school tomorrow. That's about 94% of our projection, but kindergarten doesn't start for a week. So we're feeling pretty confident that we're going to get awfully close, if not all the way to our projection. I know that you're considering the ordinance about the sliding scale, and we don't have much to add, but of course I can't help myself. I'll add just a little bit. There's nothing more particular about our concerns from the district side. Other than this, we're starting school tomorrow, and I'm struck by that kind of change would mean essentially that we'd have one less grade school. We obviously wouldn't shut down a grade school if this went through, but that's the staffing level. And that would just make the start of this year harder. And I know that you are dealing with lots of factors outside of your control at the state level. For instance, bond debt reimbursement. It's a huge problem that you're trying to face with lots of uncertainty right now. So I'll just end with, we certainly appreciate all your support. And as servants for our students, I want to thank you on behalf of all of the kids.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations on your bonus. Let's see, how about State of Alaska? Is Mr. Smolden? I don't see him here tonight. Usually here, so we'll pass on that. Joint Assembly School Board Committee on School Issues. No meeting, Ms. Nowers. Okay. Any other public relation reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Brown.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a couple of quick updates tonight. Just a reminder of an opportunity to honor the incredible group of volunteers that we have that dedicate themselves to helping animals, staff in our community at the animal shelter. We're building back our volunteer base after shelter COVID closures. So currently 60 to 70 people volunteer at the shelter monthly, and at least 12 families foster animals in their homes for us. In the months of May and June, shelter volunteers and foster volunteers provided over 1,500 hours per month of service to the shelter. So we're going to be celebrating those volunteers with an appreciation party on this Sunday, August 22nd from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the shelter. And I throw that out there just to invite any assembly members that might want to come by and thank our awesome volunteers. Secondly, we did receive notification of 2 state designated legislative grants. The first one was for $10 million for the purpose of pavement rehabilitation through the Mat-Su population corridor. There are some stipulations on that grant. So we're working with the granting agency as well as the Department of Transportation to discuss that scope of work. We are required to provide project descriptions within the next 30 days. The second grant we received was for the 2024 Arctic Winter Games for $1 million. So the state did come through with that grant. We're expecting additional grants in future years to set us up for that Winter Games. And then that brings me to my last update. I'm going to invite Amy Spargo to the podium. And I want to introduce Ms. Spargo to you. Many of you may know her from her previous work here in the Mat-Su Borough and in the school district. But she has agreed to accept and step into the role as the president of the host society. So she will be leading the charge for organizing the host society and really setting us up for success in the games that we're excited to be moving toward here in 2024. I'll just say this. I think she's a great fit for this position. She's smart. She's an accomplished leader. She's a great communicator. She's well respected. She's a champion of our youth. And she has a passion for the Mat-Su Borough and our valley and our community. So I can't think of a better fit. So she's just going to give you a short update tonight. And you'll see a lot more of her in the coming months.
Good evening, Mayor Halter, Assembly members, Manager Brown. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I am thrilled to be in this position. It has been fun and fast and furious from the beginning. Since the bid was awarded to the Mat-Su Borough, a nonprofit organization was stood up from scratch, and that organization is called the Mat-Su 2024 Arctic Winter Games Host Society. And the host society is well on its way to being fully organized and beginning the work of welcoming 2,000 of our northern neighbors from Greenland, Scandinavia, and Canada to the Valley to spend a week competing in winter sports and participating in cultural programs. It's been exciting to assemble a team of civic-minded, positive people that are willing to volunteer their time to make this good thing happen for our community. I wanted to briefly name our board of directors so that you can be as confident as I am in the expertise and skills they hold. They are already the backbone of many of the recreational organizations in our community, and many of them serve on other nonprofit boards. Everything from Mat-Su Ski Club to wrestling clubs, hockey clubs. Our vice president is Lita Boris, and she brings the expertise of the Mat-Su Borough Planning Department to our board. She's been really up to her eyeballs and been doing a lot of the nuts and bolts with the state of getting this organization up and running, and I just couldn't be more grateful for her efforts. Cheyenne Heindel is our treasurer, of course, and she is keeping an oversight of our finances. Casey Ressler is our Director of Marketing and Public Relations. And if you don't know him, he's the marketing manager for the Mat-Su Convention and Visitors Bureau. We have Kim Solyans, one of our members at large, also from the planning department. Our Director of Venues is a local engineer, Colin Fay, who was a past participant of the Arctic Winter Games, and he's an engineer from Respect here in Palmer. Another stroke of luck we had is that our Director of Sports Technical is Holly Odegaard, who served as the Director of Sports Technical in Fairbanks in 2014. And she had such a good time at that position that when she retired and moved down here, she volunteered to take up that work again for us. So we have somebody who's been there and done that. Our Director of Volunteers and Protocol is Trent Ferris, and you might know him if you're in the wrestling world. He's very active there and is the president of the largest wrestling tournament, the Lancer Smith. And he comes with all hands on deck family. His wife has been helping out, and she's going to be assisting our board in a variety of ways. And Jeanette Steer is our Director of Care and Comfort. She's a previous lodge owner and an environmental scientist here in Palmer. Our Director of IT and Communications is Jonathan Babbitt. He currently is the Vice President of Product Management, Marketing, and Sales for MTA. And Katie Ellsworth is our Director of Cultural Programs, and she's the previous Director of Federal Programs for the Mat-Su Borough School District. The community spirit among this group is remarkable, and I'm confident we will be able to showcase our athletes, local community, people, and culture in a positive light. Now, I would be remiss in a room full of people who care about our home and community like I do, not to let you know that we need about 2,000 volunteers to pull off the Arctic Winter Games in world-class fashion. There will be opportunities for people who can make a 3-hour commitment, hanging signs or putting together bunk beds, to a 3-year commitment, serving on a committee for health, safety, or a specific sport, and every level in between. This event is a chance for all of us to pull together for a great cause. I am excited with our interactions and meetings we've had with the school district, with our tribal partners, and I feel like this work is off to a good start and moving forward. Our board meets once a month, starting in September, and I will be back before you to give you more updates as things proceed. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any.
Any questions? Ms. Nowers?
Thank you. You just answered my question, how we keep up to date on what you're doing. Just wanted to say thank you for stepping into this position. Not sure how you got arm twisted into doing it, but we really appreciate it. And that's, I know, a fair number of the people that you mentioned, and that's a great team. So
It is.
thank you, and looking forward to hearing more.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're delighted you're the leader of this 2024 Arctic Winter Games. It's just, it's great news. And so thank you for doing that. And Chaz St. George, you might want to put the pinch on him. He's a great guy. The Iditarod has 2,000 to 3,000 volunteers. And so.
Keep those good suggestions coming. Thanks, Mayor.
Go get him. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Mr. Brown is finished. Mr. Spropoulos. Nothing tonight?
We have a long meeting tonight, no report.
Okay. He's going to lead out on the school funding ordinance too. So I think he's saving himself probably, you know. So Madam Clerk.
Clerk's report is in your red folder, and also the candidate filing opened yesterday, and it closes next Friday on the 27th at 5 p.m.
So a week from now, huh? Okay.
Week and a half.
Anybody
Week
want
and a
to
half.
run for mayor or something like that? Won't ruin your life? Okay. Let's go to the citizens and other correspondence. Any comments on the citizen and other correspondence? Hearing none, they are presented. Madam Clerk, the IMs.
IM 21-171, informing the Assembly of a memorandum of agreement between the Alaska State Department of Transportation and Public Facilities and the Matanuska-Susitna Borough that will be presented to the Borough Manager for signature for the Community Transportation Program funding for maintenance and operations of Herman Road Upgrade and Extension Project. IM 21-172, informing the Assembly of a grant amendment from the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management that will be presented to the Borough Manager for signature. IM 21-173, informing the Assembly of a memorandum of agreement between the Alaska State Department of Transportation and Public Facilities and the Borough that will be presented to the Manager for signature for the transfer of local roads to the Borough in connection with the Alaska State Department of Transportation and Public Facilities installation, operations, and maintenance of lighting as part of the Glen Highway milepost 34 to 42 project.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We are at public hearings. We have no persons to be heard, so public hearings are next. If you're present, please sign up. We do have signups in the back of the room, so you can sign up to speak. If are you calling into this meeting to testify telephonically, please hit *3 when you hear the public hearing you would like to speak to being read into the record. Okay, Madam Clerk, ordinance 21-076, 21-077.
An ordinance relating to the constructions, additions, improvements, betterments, repair, reconstruction, or acquisition of public roads and facilities related thereto in the Matanuska-Susitna Borough, together with all necessary equipment and transportation facilities, including improving school access and the acquisition of lands or rights in lands in connection therewith, and a debt of the borough, authorizing the issuance of very wide general obligation bonds of the borough in an amount not to exceed $73,685,000 to finance the cost in whole or in part of such public roads, facilities, and lands, and submitting the proposition to the voters at the November 2nd, 2021 regular borough election with accompanying ordinance 21077, an ordinance adopting MSB 110-170 and MSB 3.35, 1.5% area-wide sales tax for transportation system projects, implementing a 1.5% sales tax within the entire Matanuska-Susitna Borough beginning on July 1st, 2022 for a period of 5 years or until $73,685,000 is collected, whichever is earlier, and then expire, in submitting the proposition to the voters at the November 2nd, 2021 regular borough election. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Okay, we've already had a staff report on this, so we won't add anything. As I said earlier, at agenda setting, there's going to be a motion to divide the two ordinances, 21076 and 21077, with a follow-up motion to move to postpone indefinitely on 21077, which is a sales tax, though. Okay, the public hearing is reopened. We have a sign-up list. Mr. Mayfield, you lead out, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Assembly. Good to see you this evening. I'm here to talk about support for keeping the Westlake Boulevard on the bond package and keeping it at the $4.5 million amount that is listed here. This road is probably the worst paved road in the entire borough. There are, within a 2-mile stretch of this road, there are 24 dips in the road which measure more than 8 inches, and there are thousands of others. Basically, this road is held together with just tar. And many of you have been invited to travel the road. I don't know how many of you have, but if you had, I think you would agree that it's just a horrible road and it needs to be repaired. It needs to be engineered properly. The road was built in a hurry when it was built. The substrata was not what it needed to be. It wasn't engineered properly. There are cars buried underneath the road that support the substrata of the road. My wife's car is one of those, her very first car. So I know what I'm talking about. And, the road, you're going to hear some cost-cutting measures tonight, but truly this road needs to be engineered properly and repaired to standards. And so I hope that you will consider keeping it on the list and keeping it at the original amount, unless there's a very well-defined engineer scenario that you can look at that would virtually assure that it be repaired properly. Also, in regards to the 1.5% sales tax, I am not a great guy, great supporter of a sales tax, but each of us in the Mat-Su have supported the cities of Wasilla and Houston and Palmer with sales tax, and it's about time that we get something for our sales tax dollars. I think it would be a mistake to table that or postpone it indefinitely. I think it needs to go to the voters and for the voters to make that decision. Thank you.
Okay, Virgie Thompson.
Virgie Thompson, City of Houston. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Assembly, and support staff. An area-wide sales tax at this time is a bad idea. It is important to remember it's not just about the Mat-Su Borough. It's about the 3 cities within the Mat-Su Borough. We are unified in saying that we oppose this proposal. Please consider voting this ordinance down unanimously. That sends a message to the residents that you agree now is not the time. The infrastructure bill that was recently passed, or at least part of it, will likely provide funds to the Mat-Su Borough and cities to improve roads, bridges, and so forth. The state of Alaska is also considering a 4% statewide sales tax. It is my opinion that both will be voted down. In the meantime, this discussion is a serious waste of people's money. Separating this into a bond debt for the Matsu Borough, which is us, the residents, and dropping the sales tax still makes no sense. Why would the Matsu Borough put the debt on its residents when you possibly will be getting federal funding for these projects? Thank you.
DJ McBride. Welcome.
Good evening, all. I'm DJ McBride, Chair of RSA 15 Road Board. And we have met and we support the road boards, the proposed projects in the Caswell area for the following reasons. These roads have already been improved as gravel roads and are ready for paving with very little prep needed. If the paving is delayed, the more prep will be needed, more money will need to be spent to bring them back up before we can pave them. RSA doesn't have the money to pave these roads, despite having the third highest mill rate in the valley, 4.1. Once the roads are paved, the maintenance costs for them will go down, thus freeing up monies for RSA 15 to bring other roads that are substandard up to standard and making it safer for our residents. And this will also enhance fire safety for the largest subdivision in the valley. Since this is the only one way in or out of this area, it would be best if the trees were cleared back, and being paved was also allow for a safer, quicker evacuation as needed. Any questions?
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Helen Harriet. Helen Harriet?
I signed the wrong list, I'm sorry.
Okay. So we'll pull you off of there. Okay.
Thank you.
Bill Harriet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't come here prepared to speak tonight, just to show my support in West Lakes Boulevard in Big Lake. I'm on the RSA board out there, so I'm real familiar with the problems that we have in Big Lake. I know at one point we had some money allocated to do West Lakes Boulevard and it got taken away. All the 700-800 lot owners out there were pretty disappointed. The road is really a mess. And we do need to do something, and I don't think just an overlay is going to do it. It's settling year by year. I've been there 23 years, and other than flat tires, the gravel road worked pretty good. At least we could grade it. This thing is a mess, and it does need help. Thank you.
How many miles are we talking about?
Well, the first 3 miles would be good. There where the snowmobile trail crosses, there's another divot. After that, it isn't too bad, but that first 3 mile stretch, I mean, there's sometimes I go across it 20 times a day, and we've got so much crack seal on it. In the curves, in a heavy rain, you can actually feel your tires sliding on the tar. So safety issues everywhere, but it does seriously need some help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Bailey.
Hi, my name is Mark Bailey. Thank you to the Assembly, the Mayor, and the support staff. Testifying in support of the road bonds. It's always a good thing to add more walkability to our borough. Even since I was in high school over a decade ago, there's been more and more walking paths added, and that's created a lot more activity in our neighborhoods and our main roads, and which that can lead to more economic activity in our borough as well. I am in opposition to the sales tax. That's probably going to get pulled anyways. I would suggest an alternative to a fuel tax. It's a good user tax. If you're going to be driving in the borough, using our roads, buying our fuel, might as well chip in to help maintain and service bond debt for that. Even a 6 to 8 cent per gallon fuel tax equals to about, at current prices, 1.5 to 2% tax on fuel, which is pretty reasonable, and it keeps us competitive with Anchorage. So if you're going to look into anything to help pay for our roads and service them, I highly suggest a fuel tax.
Thank you. Douglas Lowry. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Manager Brown, rest of the Assembly. My name is Douglas Lowry, and I am the point of contact for RSA 17. It's the largest RSA in this borough. We have two major arterial roads out there that are always under construction, always something happening, and there's no more road in the borough than KGB for fatalities and accidents. And Point McKenzie Road is right behind it. I would really like to leave the money that's in the bond project right now to repair the first 7 miles of Point McKenzie Road. There are 5 major earthquake damage points on that road. And as the port has continued to develop, we have liquid natural gas double tankers. We have heavy bulk trucks with cement and other things in it. We have heavy loads of wood, drywall, and all kinds of other bulk products coming in from the port. The first 7 miles of that road needs to be completely dug up, re-engineered, all the culverts replaced. We've got 5 areas of culverts that have to be replaced. The state is supposed to be doing some construction next year. I don't know where that's going to be. If we don't, it's going to cost the borough at least $1.5 million per mile to rebuild that road properly, and it will take the RSA 4 to 5 years to complete that if we can't tie in with the state. So I would appreciate leaving the money here until we know for a fact that we're going to get some federal funds, because that road has got to be fixed. It's not going to last the way it is much longer. And with the trucks and everybody else coming 55 and 60 miles an hour down that road, it's not going to last. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Coons.
This is general public. I'm not on the agenda.
Well, you signed up to speak on these two ordinances.
No, I just want public.
Okay, you want to withdraw? Okay, very good. Billy Gonzalez.
I'm on Point McKenzie Community Council.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, just state your name and then.
I thought I talked
Yeah.
loud enough. I'm on Point McKenzie Community Council, and I just heard that gentleman say about that roads out there, and I have to agree with him that you should leave those monies in for Point McKenzie. You have done a wonderful job in repairing that one culvert so far at Fish Creek. And it's been a beautiful job done for the paint on the roads. But we do have the heavy traffic on those roads, and I travel those roads quite frequently. I do not try to get out on those roads at 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I do not try to get on the roads. I try to get home before the 3:30 to 5:30 traffic. There is a lot of traffic, and more is coming out that way. They still speed on that road, and they still pass on the double lines. And something's got to be done. And with the roads getting broken up at times, anybody that's passing like that, their tire is going to hit a dip or a crack or anything that has went down, and there's going to be accidents and pileups on that road. Thank you. So please leave the money in there to repair.
For the record, that was Billy Gonzalez speaking. And just for your information, the mayor wants that to stay on the bond package. I don't get to decide that, but hint, a little bit. Betty Harriman, or Harriman, did I?
Good evening. My name is Betty Harriman. I live on South Goose Creek Road off Point McKenzie. And like my sister, I travel that road a lot. And what I would have to say is that I had heard that we were supposed to get that road paved next year. The first 7 miles of it was to be paved. And we were so happy about all that going to get done, because it is a dangerous road. Now we're learning to find out that it's not going to get paved. We was told that it was going to get wider, better shoulders, and that it's just going to be a far better road than what it is. I have since learned that the borough decided not to do this project, and with the increase of traffic in the coming years, this is going to be a disaster, and I mean increased traffic. We're finding out that we're going to have a road that's going to go 100 miles past Ashire. They're going to be building that road. It's going to be 2 to 5 years for that road to get built. And when that starts getting built, there's going to be even more heavy traffic with more loads of dirt and gravel, trucks after truck after truck. It's just going to get worse. And I'm really, really upset that the borough's dropped this project to get that road paved. Thank you.
It hasn't been dropped yet. Okay, Butch Moore.
Mr. Mayor, Borough Assembly, staff, thank you for the road bond package, and I'd like to thank our Assembly member, Mr. Tu, for putting the amendment on to add West Lakes Boulevard. And I'm sorry I'm not a little better prepared for the meeting tonight. And I forwarded an email that's in the packet to the clerk's office, which she included. I'm not a road expert, but I was out in Willow building roads. And so on the way back in, I forwarded the email. And I called my friend Todd Johnson, who works for Quality Asphalt Paving. And one of the things that Assemblymember Tu and I talked about was the cost of the 4.5 million. And it just seemed like a lot of money. So when I talked to Todd Johnson, he said he's been on the road many times, and it really needs to be pulverized, chipped, regraded, compacted, and overlaid. And so we talked about a house with a roof. You pull the roof off, you may need to replace the sheeting, you may need to replace the trusses. We don't have to go all the way down to Dan Mayfield's wife's car. But it's been 20 years. And I was just regrading road that's about 10 years old, and they settle. And Todd gave me the information. I said, can I use this? Is it all right if I forward this to the Assembly? He said, I checked with our estimator. These are the actual numbers that we're charging the state of Alaska current day for the Parks Highway. So if we were to do, my neighbor Bill Harriet told me the road is 5.8 miles from Beaver Lake Road all the way to Bellardi. If we were to do the entire road, grind it up, the total surface, recompact it, and overlay it with new asphalt, it's $268,000 per mile, which is 1.5 million. If we just did the first mile and a half, now I was thinking to Sky Hill, which is a mile and a half, and then we overlaid the rest, it'd be 1.2 million. And I was happy after I forwarded all this to the clerk's office and the package, I called Mr. Tu and said, hey, here's what I came up with. And he said, well, you'll be happy to know that I work with the borough staff and Mike Brown to come up with a new number of 2.5 million, not 4.5 million. So I assume we're going after that car with the extra $1 million. But I think what's happened here is a really good case of all of our neighbors and our manager and our assembly member looking at a number of 4.5. And if we could do this with all these road packages and cut it down to almost half, I still think we could do it for 1.2, but everything will double by next year. So maybe the 2.5 is a good number. But I would ask to keep that on the package, West Lakes Boulevard. And I think if we cut it down, it maybe makes it a little more palatable. Any questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Craig Bettinger.
Yes, I've lived on West Lakes Boulevard for 18 years and watched it basically go to hell. And not only people talk about what it's doing to their cars and their trucks, but there's also another issue for people like myself that ride motorcycles. Last summer, they came in and they tarred the whole thing and made it, if you've ever been on a motorcycle, know what it's like hitting a stretch of tar. And it's not just horizontal, it's vertical with it. It makes it pretty bad. So I called the borough and they said, oh, there's been money appropriated to do the road. So that's great. So he says, there's not much we can do at this point. I said, yeah. I said, well, in the future, maybe when you put down tar, you could put a little bit of sand on it when you first do it, so there's some kind of grip. He said, well, that sounds like a good idea. And then this summer they come back out and they tar the whole thing crazy amounts. You cannot get through the first 2 miles hardly on a motorcycle. If you've ever been on one, it's like hitting grease. You might as well have poured oil on that road. And then I don't know what's worse, the places where it's all completely covered or where it's just all over the place where you're sliding and then hitting pavement and sliding and hitting pavement. And the 2 worst roads are the ones that turn off to the right, which what makes bad about those is they're covered with tar. You come into one of those, if you go down, you're gonna go into the other lane and if you run into another car, you don't know what's gonna happen then. So I'd just like to point out that there's other reasons besides just the frost heaves and everything else. It's a real safety issue and somebody's gonna get hurt. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Bert Cottle is up next. Welcome.
Bert Cottle, Mr. Mayor, Assembly members. A couple of weeks ago, Senator Murkowski released a news release on the infrastructural package. And I give you all a copy of that tonight, and I just want to highlight a couple of things. Federal highway formula funding that will be provided will be approximately $3.5 billion in highway funding for Alaska over the next 5 years to construct, rebuild, and maintain its roads and highways. Funding for bridges, construction, maintenance, and repair, Alaska should get $225 million to address more than 140 bridges considered to be deficient. There's also, and this is a nationwide number, but there's also $1 billion to replace culverts. There's also an additional $11 billion nationwide for highway and pedestrian safety programs, including significant investment in safe streets programs, which aims to prevent death and serious injury to cyclists on the roads and streets. So with that, I want to say, so we know there could be federal money coming. We can't guarantee it's going to get to us, but during the next few months and in the next year, we'll have a governor's election, 10 senators up for election, and all 40 House members. Of that, 9 of them represent us in our valley. No offense, I'm not picking on anybody, but we need to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they bring home the bacon. I don't know what else to tell you. You've got lobbyists that we pay right now sitting in this room that represent us on state issues. You pay a federal lobbyist another $80,000. It's time maybe that we put their feet to the fire. Like I said, I'm not picking on anybody, but it's time they also bring home the bacon. That's what we hired them for. And then if you look at the borough budget, your current borough budget is $410 million a year. Your budget carry forward for 2019 to 2020, your carry forward money was approximately $68 million. So you can say it however you want. You had $68 million you carried forward from one budget to another. This year in your budget, and all of you were here for that budget, you carried $47 million from 20 to 21's budget. So you forward, call it whatever you want. You carried, or you had a surplus for $47 million. So I believe over the next budget cycle, we can find $6 to $7 million a year in the current budget or surplus that we can use for roads without doing the sales tax, without burdening the people that live in the valley. So with that, I'm trying to prep this for your later vote. The only other thing I can say, because it sounds like you guys might be looking at changing what's going to be on the road issues and what's going to be there, we will not have another chance for public comment before it goes on the ballot. And I don't think that's fair. Thank you.
Nick Brockett. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you. I have my comments on the road situation is pretty simple. I want you to bring your attention to the roundabout over on Bogart. It's about 8 inches high, okay? And you can see across it. Emergency vehicles can get around it, no problem. And then compare that to the one that you guys built in Big Lake for like $3 million. It is the boondoggle that nobody wanted and nobody needed. I've been on the fire department out there for 12 years, okay? And I know where the accidents and stuff happen. Nothing ever happened there. That's just total waste of money. But I'm not done. I live at the end of Susitna Parkway, okay? And the extension was put in, and that was necessary because Big Lake Road is a snake. It followed the thing. And there was a lot of accidents on there, especially Friday and Saturday nights. I don't know why those were special nights. Anyway, you guys put the extension in. It's a great road, except it's like a Class A road with a Class C road at both ends, so it doesn't make much sense. You paved it, you did it. A quarter of a mile before the end of it, you closed it off, didn't finish it. It sat there all winter. The next spring, you opened it back up and tore the thing completely out and redid it again, put new pavement down. That wasn't good enough. The next year, you closed it down again and tore both ends out and put turning lanes at both ends. Now, I live out there. Let me tell you, a snail, that's right, a snail could cross the road out there with at least a 90% chance of making it. That's how little traffic there is. We need turning lanes on the end of that thing, like a fish needs a bicycle. Stop wasting that kind of money, and you won't have to put tax on to increase and improve our roads. Thank you.
I like that big lake turn circle myself, but, you know, and by the way, that Susitna project, that was a state project where the money sat idle for 7-8 years. And the borough finally talked to state into letting us use the money and build that section. That's what really happened there. Okay, Brian Endel.
Brian Endel, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the Assembly and staff. I'm against the sales tax. Many people have lost their jobs over the past year, and the burden is unnecessary for both businesses and individuals. Considering that there's about 100,000 people in the borough and the amount of money that you stated here in this ordinance, $73,685,000, that's about $737 per person, roughly. Consider, now if only the people in the borough were paying the tax, et cetera, just making an analogy here. So take $737 and consider the assembly person that you like least and hand it over to them and offer and just put your trust in them. Consider that before you go ahead with this sales tax. Thank you.
Okay, that was all that was on the sign-up list, so we're going to go to Telephonics. No Telephonics. Ma'am, why don't you come on? Yes, you bet. We're going to take anybody in this room that wants to talk.
My name is Deborah Neal, and my husband and I have property off of West Lakes Boulevard. And I just want to please ask you to just consider, Butch is kind of like our guy, and there's 5 lots together, and we kind of trust him. So I would ask you to consider what he said about talking with his friend that has the business. And please, if you haven't driven on any of these roads that these people are talking about, my husband and I've owned that property for 21 years. There was a dirt road, then they paved it. We were so excited. Well, my mom, who's 88, is visiting me from Arizona, and we seriously had to consider whether she would be comfortable enough to drive down that road. She doesn't walk well. It's the Westlake Road it's so bumpy, and you have to weave and bob, and it is unsafe because you're not, your people are coming. The other bummer is I have a bicycle. I can't ride my bicycle anymore. It's awful. It's awful. And it's a shame that when we're coming up with other options for you, if you wouldn't consider them. So please do, if whatever Mr. Tu came down with is enough, that's great, but just please don't throw it out the door, because it really is a project that needs to be done. And I think if we can, there's a lot of people out there. I'm very surprised. I drove in from Anchorage because it's important. I'm surprised. I think people just don't realize this stuff's going on, or they really would come, because I think that if everyone that lived out there understood we could get it fixed, this room would be stuffed full of people. I don't know. Just got stuff going on in the world right now. But anyway, just please consider doing the paving and fixing the stuff that Butch turned over to you. Thank you.
Is that an electric bike
I do have an electric bike.
Probably.
Yes. But I have a Corvette too. Never
Okay.
going to see that lake again, so can't go
Well,
down that road.
Life is good. I'm glad. There we go. Sir, come on. Mr. Coons, you've spoken once, so did you want? Yeah, he hasn't spoken, so come on forward. Welcome.
My name is Mike Coons. So I was kind of confused about this thing. Number one,
totally against the sales tax. I'll talk about that later maybe. But I think the comment, one of the comments that was talking about was the bike trails and walking trails. I heard here a while back, I'm not sure exactly how accurate what it was, I was told, but in order to get federal funding for roads and stuff, that you have to have a portion of that for bike trails and walking trails. And I live on Lazy Mountain, so I have to go down the Overland Highway. We got that nice, beautiful walking trail right there that it's not supposed to be ATVs on it, but there's ATVs on it. You know, it's, I think if we really actually went down to getting it down to the road and stop spending all this money for bike trails and everything else for beautification, we could probably get a lot more road done for a lot less money. So I'm not really happy. I have some issues with that. The roundabouts, that one the one is it's the one goes to the frontage road up there on four corners off the parks. That was the most useless piece of roundabout I've ever seen in my life. The roundabout going towards Four Corners is bad enough, but the one down there at that end is just completely blows my mind. And I'm sitting, and then the one at Bogart, that little dinky little rise, the first time I drove that, I almost went over the top of it. You know, it's like, what in the world? So I don't know who comes up with these ideas, but maybe they need to go back to France where they do them right, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not really, I think we need to really look at these roads and what we're doing, you know, and doing it right. And for $1.5 million versus $4 million, I think it's a really good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Art, come on forward.
Good evening, Borough Manager, Borough staff, and the Borough Assembly. My name is Barbara Gerard. I have been the chair for Road Service Area North Colony 23 for over 25 years. After the Miller's Reach fire, a large study was funded to evaluate subdivisions with one-way in and out. The study evaluated and considered the best placement for emergency evacuation routes. The outcome of that study for North Colony 23 was the extension of Soapstone Road to Bonnie or Falk Road. Many of us were surprised to see the project from Boyd Road extending to Norman Road. And for the cost of $3.3 million for 2.2 miles worth of coverage. This is not the recommended route that was set up by the study. Please remove this Boyd Road to Norman and check out the study that was done a few years ago, quite a few years ago, actually, in 1996. So thank you very much.
I think the manager asked for that one to be removed, if I'm not, is that correct? Yes. Suggested. He suggested that. Okay, anybody else wish to speak? You spoke once, sir.
It was just to give some information to the.
Okay, we'll give you another minute. We'll give you another minute up here to Mike.
Okay, just real quickly.
I'm gonna have to ask for one too.
No, you're not getting another second. I have some discretion here.
As
Okay.
the chairman for RSA 17, I just want the folks out in Point Mac community to know that we have not given up on paving the road, but it's just not paving. We're trying to deal with the state and get it, because they're going to redo the road bed and everything else and take it all the way down. Whatever they don't do, we have to do. And so that's why it may take, if we don't keep the money in here for the bond and we don't get that, then RSA 17 has to do that mile by mile. And so far our price to do that is about $1.5 to $2 million per mile, because we have to go all the way down to the roadbed and build it back up. It's not just paving or overlay. We got to go all the way to the bottom because of the tundra and the culverts. So I just wanted to explain that.
Thank you. You want a couple roundabouts too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll laugh when the LNG tankers go over the top of it.
Anybody else wish to speak? Ma'am, come on forward, please. Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. I also am a resident that lives at the end of West Lakes Boulevard.
Could you state your name real quick for the record?
I'm sorry, my name is Tammy Manette,
Okay.
and I reside at the end of West Lakes Boulevard. I do frequent that road at least once a day. It is very dangerous at this point. At the very beginning of that road, you've heard that it has extensive damage. Every year, it gets progressively worse, and every year it's been patched, which makes it more dangerous, I think, at this point. I do believe that there was a resident that said he took a styro cup and he set it into the dips and put his head down on the road, and there were several times when you couldn't see the styro cup, and that is after it has been repaired. People do travel that road all the time. A snail will not make it across that road, I can tell you that. It is extremely beat up. It needs some TLC, more than what's just a patch job. And that is dangerous for the motorcycles. And people are weaving around all those spots. And we are weaving, unfortunately, into other lanes back and forth to try to miss the huge bumps. And we slow way down. And it's still very, very treacherous. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Ma'am, come on forward.
Thank you. My name is Jackie Gomes. I live on East Chalet Drive. And I want you to know I was late, but I was planning on being here to speak about the 1.5% sales tax. But I was in Anchorage on their nightmare of traffic, and that made me late. And you have no idea how much sales tax we would lose if we did that. So I understand it's been tabled, which is great. Thank you. But I want to know over on my area, I know they're going to punch through the Hemmer Road thing, but there are several streets that have been paved there. Rush Circle and Penny Lane and another one. But East Chalet is just hanging out there as the lone dirt trail. Is that ever going to be on anybody's plan to get our little dogleg of a road paved? That's just what I was wondering.
Which road service area are you in?
Which roads? I have no idea.
Okay. That big. Okay. Yeah, see our Director of Public Works, Terry Dolan. You might want to chat with him sometime, give him a telephone call, and maybe he could really get you going in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? Sir, come on forward.
Good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Peter Joe Hanknick, and I wanted to comment about the West Lakes potential project. I'd like to ask you to keep it on the forefront. I'm fortunate to now access my property, and I use it on a daily basis. And I found that this year in traveling, I traveled it infrequently in the years past, but I travel it every day now. And there's quite a few problems with it, you know, especially the bumps, but you also have narrow road, no shoulders, raised beds. You have wildlife out there, you have bicyclists. So I think I'm out of all of it, you know, and not just the money portion of it, but the safety is immensely important. When I travel it, I follow the speed limit or go less. Sometimes you have to go less because of the condition that it is. But it certainly needs to have, take into account for bicyclists. It's awful windy, so better visual around the corners, maybe some tree removal, culverts to assist in some of the water. So again, not talking about money directly, you know, we can try and keep the costs reduced, but I think safety is the number one thing there. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. We got a new sign up list. I think it's Jews Milt or Jews Milty. There you go. Milt, come on forward, sir. Then Gary Foster follows.
So yeah, James Mills, I wanted to address the
bond proposal and an amendment I just learned today to remove the Point McKenzie road upgrades from that bond proposal. We've been residents or own property out Point McKenzie for about 23 years now. We first started out there as a gravel road. It was paved shortly after that. It's great. But I don't know that much has been done to it since then. And over the years, there's been increasing traffic on that road, both from the prison, the LNG plant, and lately I see, quite a few bulk haulers out there. So a lot of traffic on that road. It's in very bad shape. The amendment seems to think that the funds for doing this upgrade would come from the infrastructure bill currently in the House of Representatives, I believe. A bill that may pass, may not. A bill that if Alaska gets the funding, some of that funding may be directed toward that road improvement. So there's a lot of maybes involved there. But that road really needs to be upgraded now, and the sooner the better. Increased traffic, it's a safety hazard. I understand that the, Point McKenzie Community Council is actually paying to remove brush along the side of the road now, just to make it safer due to moose. So, I mean, the borough needs to step up and take care of that road, and the sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Foster.
Hi, Gary Foster. I'm the president of the Point McKenzie Community Council, and I'm here to address also the same bond package. I just learned today also that Point McKenzie Road was being removed from that package. The issue with that particular proposal is that it is a Class 2 road. It falls within the federal guidelines. However, the borough took over the maintenance to that road some years ago, and to try to throw this project back off on the federal government after the borough took responsibility for it, that road has been stuck into limbo for a number of years. This weekend, we hosted at our place a bike rally. They normally take the Point McKenzie Road and do bike races down it. This year, because of last year's near collisions, they moved it and went to the upper side of Point McKenzie rather than to do the first 7 miles of Point McKenzie like they normally do. I don't want to see you remove that from the bond package. There was over $1 million that was set aside a couple of years ago, and none of that $1 million has been spent on that road since. The borough continues on their contracts to leave the only 55-mile-an-hour road that the borough has at an 8-foot cleaning zone. That's fine if you're talking about a road that's 25 mile an hour, maybe even 30 mile an hour. But 8 foot is not enough for the clearing for that road, even if it was upgraded. It should be cleared back to at least 75 feet to be a 55-mile-an-hour road. The Point McKenzie Community Council stepped forward this year because it has not been done by the borough, a proper cleaning for the last 10 years. And we put forth the money through the council to clear your roads with. So we really don't want to see this taken off of that particular bond package. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Sir, come on forward, and ma'am, you're next after. Welcome.
Good evening. I live on South Goose Creek Road, just off of Point Mac.
Could you state your name for the record real quick?
My name is Herman Rumfeld,
Okay,
okay?
thank you.
I used to ride a bicycle for part of my rehab when I busted some things up. And I used to ride down Point Mac the first 3 miles to the post office, to the mailboxes and back. I've almost been run over about 6 times. And the road is really in need of repair, but you guys have been putting Band-Aids on it. Mr. Two has been there, and I think Mr. McGee has been there also to one of our Point Mac meetings when they were going for our elections. But people very seldom drive 55. I drive a 1-ton truck, and I've had people try to run over my truck with a little car, and I've had people pass me, and I'm going 60 like I'm sitting still. So I agree with the cleaning the sides, but I'm telling you, if you don't fix that road, someone is really going to get hurt. I mean, there's so much tar in places. When I pull my fifth wheel down the road, you can actually feel it wiggle sometimes. And I don't know. I was told about this, that they were removing the funds, and I was kind of disappointed.
Not yet.
Thank you.
It's still on the bond package.
Thank you for your time.
That's where we want to keep it. Anybody else wish to speak? I think it was, ma'am, come on forward, please.
Good evening. My name is Peg Watkinson, and I've been a property owner off of, on the West Lakes Boulevard as well for over 20 years. Two things that haven't been mentioned this evening about that road is that that is our only access for the fire department, for all the residences that live on that, off of that road system. And also there are numerous school buses that travel that road as well. So those are two other things from a safety standpoint for everyone that lives out in our area that are of great concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak on the road bond package? Sir, come on forward.
Yes, my name's Kevin Tabler. I'm also a homeowner out on Westlake Boulevard, and I've submitted written comments, but I just wanted to go from the record and indicate that what you've just heard is true. There are ruts. They're big. I have a broken shock to prove it. It's pulling my trailer. And this was 2 years ago. You get the frost heave coming and going. And I've been passed numerous times by people impatient when you're pulling any sort of a recreational equipment behind your vehicle. So there is an incredible safety hazard there, as well as I'm concerned about the ingress and egress, as Peg just mentioned. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
I won't go any further, but as I said, I have comments that you may read. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak on the road bond package or sales tax? Mayor. You like the road bond package and you're in favor of a sales tax?
Oh, sure I'm not.
Duh. How did I miss that one?
Anyway, on the sales tax, one thing that we have not considered is we have a large population, not only in the city, but borough-wide, of elderly people that live on a fixed income. And they did not get a cost of living this year. So if we dump 1.5%, that don't sound like much, but if you're living on a fixed income and that is attached to your groceries and your utility bills, that makes a big difference to them. So that's something you need to consider if you're looking at that 1.5%. And I do agree with all the other mayors. We are definitely against it.
No.
Thank you.
We couldn't tell. Anybody else wish to speak on the road bond package? Any telephonics? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at this point in time. The motion's on the floor. I'll turn this over to Ms. Nowers for her.
I'd like to move to divide the question, and I'd like to speak to that.
Okay, motion to divide the question 21076 from 21077. Go ahead.
So I'd like to move to divide it, so we'll consider the road bond package separate from the sales tax, but I want to say a few things about the sales tax and why I wanted to divide it. And I want to say it here because I know I've spoken to a lot of you, but this is going to be an ongoing discussion. If we don't pass the sales tax and we pass the road bond, it still needs to be paid for. We can't get it for free. So I'm planning to bring forward a fuel tax. Won't be tonight, but later. I just want to, and again, I just want to put it out there because this is an ongoing discussion. In the conversation I've had with people, the issue we're having is we pass road bonds for 16 roads in the past 7 years, and we've been able to complete one because the funding hasn't been there from the state. So we're having a discussion about how we're going to fund it. Some people think the federal infrastructure is going to come forward, but we got a lot of highways and bridges that's going to go towards. So I don't know if we can have our cake and eat it too. Do we want to take control and get some of these projects done? And everything I've heard tonight, there's more need out there than we have funding for. I could have people in here talking about Bogard, drive down that, past Caribou and Charlie, and tell me that whole stretch isn't a giant safety hazard. Crimson View is a subdivision across from the fairgrounds. If you want to talk about Patchwork Road, drive down that. It is a neighborhood, but there's a lot of people in there and it's all crack seal. So even if some projects drop off this, what I want to see is something get passed and get done and move forward rather than a big project and it doesn't get done. So that's kind of, I just want to say that's why I want to divide these, but I also want people to know that it doesn't come for free. And then I just want to say on roundabouts that we could talk about
Okay,
that
now
all night,
let's
but
stick to the motion to
if
divide.
you go to
okay?
Mythbusters, they did a
Roundabouts.
thing on it. So we're just end that conversation. I had to slip that in. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Sumner, on the motion to divide only.
Yeah, just a point of order. Is not the question already divided if there's two separate ordinances?
No, they're brought consolidated, so the motion to divide is appropriate.
Okay.
So anybody else on the motion to divide? Because I'm going to ask you any opposition to dividing 21076 from 21077?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Yan.
No, Mr. Hale, but fair enough. I was planning on offering the motion to divide as well, for pretty much the exact same reasons that Assemblymember Nowers was. So I will support this.
Okay. On the motion to divide, is there any objection to dividing the two ordinances, 21076 from 21077? Any objection? Mr. Hale, any objection? Obviously not.
No, sir.
Mr. Yant, any objection?
No, sir. I support dividing.
Okay, so on the motion to divide these two ordinances, it is approved. So I guess next, do you have a motion, Mr. Yant, on ordinance 21077?
I do. I would like to postpone indefinitely ordinance 21-077, and I'd like to speak to that if I could.
So the motion's to postpone indefinitely the sales tax. Go ahead, Mr. Yant.
Things have changed since we brought this forward. Since I was elected in November, this is all I've heard about is roads from my constituents, and I think we all agree that we need to create a plan moving forward that doesn't include the state of Alaska right now. We didn't plan when this started for this potential infrastructure package from the feds. I want to give it a little bit more time to shake out, see where things fall. And then I'd like to challenge Bert and Edna. Bert, I will say, is doing an amazing job of already starting to study our finances at the Matsu Borough. But I look forward to working with one of you in the future. And I just want to challenge you to come prepared, understand our financial challenges, and roads being the main part of that. And I do credit Bert for grabbing the bull by the horns on that. So right now, I don't think it's the time for this sales tax talk. We heard a lot of good testimony tonight as to why, other reasons besides my own, as to why we should push this back. And for that reason, I would like to postpone indefinitely with the support of the Assembly. So.
Okay, on the motion to postpone indefinitely 21077, any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I absolutely support postponing indefinitely for a few different reasons than Assemblymember Yunt. For one, sales taxes are absolutely the most aggressive tax that we can do. They affect the working family the worst, the hardest out of everyone in the entire borough, and I do not support that. But I would consider supporting something like Assemblymember Nauer suggested with the user fees as far as gasoline tax goes. So, thank you.
Anyone else on the motion to postpone indefinitely? Mr. McKee?
All right, this is to postpone indefinitely the sales tax.
Which basically kills it.
Correct?
Which basically kills it.
Okay.
Okay, everybody ready to vote? Any objection to the motion to postpone indefinitely ordinance 21077? Mr. Yant, any objection? Obviously, no.
No, sir.
Mr. Hale?
No, sir.
Okay, ordinance 21077 has been postponed indefinitely. Now let's go to ordinance.
Can I get a vote count on that?
Pardon?
What was the vote count? Was it?
It was unanimous.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so now on ordinance 21076, we'll open up debate on 21076 and motions. Two, then Mr. McKee.
I move the following amendment to ordinance serial number 21-076 and IM number 2155 by striking 4.5 mil for Lakes Boulevard and inserting 2.5 mil in its place. Revising the total amount throughout the legislation.
Okay, so the motion by Mr. Tu is on West Lakes Boulevard, reducing 4.5 million to 2.5 million. Okay. Any debate, any discussion? Ms. Nauers?
I just wonder if we could get any sort of staff opinion on the cost estimates.
Mr. Manager?
Through the mayor to Ms. Nauers. So we revisited that. We went back yesterday, talked to the one of our engineers, and one of our project managers, and reran the numbers. Talked to a community member and one of our assembly members, and we believe 2.5 is reasonable.
Okay. Well, that was my only question.
May I real quick?
Go, who was that again? Mr. Hale?
Yunt.
Yeah. Mr. Yant, go ahead.
I just want to take a moment to thank Mr. Tu for working so hard in this district. I appreciate the fiscal conservative mentality that you bring to this, and I really appreciate that you're doing your best to not waste money. So thank you very much. I'll support you in this.
Okay. Well, that was really my only concern, is that 2.5 is adequate amount of money, but I'm satisfied if the manager and the engineers feel that that's the right number. I just want to make sure that road is correctly done and it's in good shape for another couple decades is what our goal should be. So any objection to Mr. Tu's amendment? Mr. Hale, any objection to the amendment by Mr. Tu?
No, sir.
Mr. Yant?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Tu's amendment, reducing the amount from 4.5 million to 2.5 million for West Lakes Boulevard passes. Mr. McKee?
I move to postpone indefinitely 21-076, and I'd like to speak to that. We were delivered here a message from our esteemed senator that says there is $3.5 billion coming to the state of Alaska for infrastructure. So it seems to me that it's a little precipitous for us to, in fact, go out with a bond issue that we don't know how we're going to pay for. Assemblyperson Nauers made a good point, okay, and it didn't raise anybody's hair like it did mine. Okay, if you pass the bond issue and you don't pass a way to fund it, the property tax owners are going to fund it. Okay, so I think we're a little precipitous on this. Another thing that kind of places funding in danger is the fact that the state legislature is in special session and they are doing a rope-a-dope with all kinds of taxes that they want to put in. A sales tax is right at the top of the list, okay? So I think we're a little bit precipitous on this. We could wait and come back with this package February or March, and it would be, and we'd have a lot more information than we have right now. Right now, we don't have a clue how we're going to pay for it.
Well, to make the ballot for this fall, for the voters to vote on the bond package, we have to make a decision about it in the next short period of time, is my understanding, correct, Madam Clerk? What would be the deadline date?
Deadline is Friday, August 27th, Mr. Mayor.
So that's part of the discussion. It's a valid discussion. Anybody else on?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hale.
Yeah, so I would just like to say in response to the assembly member that, if we do get some money from the feds towards some of this infrastructure, we can knock that off the top of whatever we're spending. We can use that federal money for this bond issuance, but we can't spend the money unless we have projects to spend it on. So that would be what I would like to say. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. John.
Yeah, nobody respects Mr. McKee more than I do, and I see his points. They're very valid. My concern with postponing this is that many of these projects have been on past bond projects where, our voters have prioritized some of these projects already, and we've not been able to deliver at no fault of our own, mainly the state of Alaska's. But this just gives us the ability to do it. Obviously, if we're given money, we're not gonna go double spend. We have, as Mr. Cottle said earlier, possibly some carry forward money that we can look at. Ms. Nowers has a proposal on the table. I'm not a fan of it, and I'll speak to that another day. But there are ideas out there, and we have a very fiscally conservative assembly. I don't foresee us wasting money moving forward. I mean, we just lowered our area-wide mill rate and our non-area-wide. We all worked hard to do that. I think the bond package approval by the voters just gives us an avenue and a path forward should we decide to do it. So I unfortunately cannot support Mr. McKee in this postponement.
Mr. Sumner?
Mr. Mayor, I think importantly, if it goes to the ballot and it passes, would allow us to expend area-wide money as a match if one of these were to receive federal funding. And so I think that actually makes it more important that we do this. We don't necessarily have to expend the money, the 73 million, just because it's authorized, but we cannot if we don't go to the ballot. We cannot spend area-wide money on roads. So,
Ms. Nowers.
Thank you, through the mayor. First of all, I'm honored that Mr. McKee thought I had a good point. Thank you. But I was just going to make a similar point that we could wait all day long for the state and federal funding to come through, and it's whether we want to move. And then if we did go forward with the fuel tax and we sunset it and tied it to this, say we had a $50 million package and we got $25 million in federal funding, I would see putting that federal funding towards it and getting rid of the fuel tax earlier if we went that way. So I think we can kind of do both and hope we get some of that funding, but not wait.
On the infrastructure money coming down, hopefully, first of all, that does have to pass the House. It does have to get signed by the president. It does have to get the money transferred from the federal government, probably going to the state. That does not mean that we're directly in line. Hopefully we will be, but I think we should hope that money comes through. and hope that it filters down to us and we could use it on this road bond package, but don't make your decision based on that, or decisions based on that. And Mr. McKee.
I guess the question I'm not getting an answer to here is the Assembly right now ready to vote on having this paid for by the property tax owners? Because in fact, there is some question in my mind as to whether a fuel tax, whether you could increase the tax on the stoners, any one of a number of things, okay, that would get the money for you. So what we're really saying here is if we go forward with this bond package, we are doing it with the knowledge that we are probably going to be shoving this down the throat of the property tax folks. And I think that's what we're really voting on here.
Mr. Manager, any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Hale.
I can wait until after the manager's done.
Okay. He was kind of hoping the reverse of that. Mr. Manager?
Through the mayor.
Well, I mean, I'll take it if he would rather. It's no skin off my back.
Go ahead.
All right. You want Mr. Hale to go?
Let Mr.
So
Hale go.
I would just like to say in response to that, you know, there was a commentator earlier tonight who said it was $737 out of each of our pockets, and whether we would be willing to hand $737 to the assembly member that we disagreed with the most. And I look around at this table and I see 6 other people that I would be absolutely willing to hand $737 to and expect them to spend it properly.
We have an opinion from the borough attorney here, okay?
Well, let's let the manager go first, and then
Okay.
Mr. Spropoulos is taking the night off.
I trust you too. I would give you advice.
Mr. Manager.
Are you sure you're ready, Mr. Mayor?
I don't
All
know
right,
if-
so through the mayor to Mr. McKee, I think the benefit of getting this on the ballot, I mean, you get one shot a year to get before the voters. The benefit of this package is it allows us to take it to the voters and for them to, if they elect to do so, give us permission to build roads on an area-wide basis. I would use the last bond package in 2018. So once the voters approved that, we did not receive a state match, so we worked and found ways to fund 4 different projects using federal highway money through the Department of Transportation. So it creates opportunities for us to do that. We would not have the ability to do that and find that federal match money for those 4 projects if the voters hadn't already approved a package. So I see the benefit is we do it now or we wait a year and talk about it again. But what it does do is it gives us the permission from the voters to move forward on an area-wide basis, which there may be opportunities that come from a federal perspective, like Mr. Sumner spoke to, that would open up and allow us to do this without putting it on the property tax payers. I do agree with you, Mr. McKee. I am not a fan of that idea of adding $500,000 to pay for these projects. So, but we need the permission from the voters before we have to nail that down, and we have some time to do that and allow for this federal infrastructure bill to run its course. That's
Okay.
what I
Now,
have, Mr. Mayor.
my question to the borough attorney, okay? The voters passed this thing, okay? And there is no way to fund it. Are the borough property tax owners on the hook for this?
So this is a 2-part question that goes to the voters. The first is the authorization to have the area-wide power to engage in these projects.
Right.
The second is to issue bonds. If you issue bonds and you don't have any other way to pay for it, yeah, the borough you have to raise property taxes.
Thank you.
What I think
Mr.
what the
Manager.
manager was talking about was if the federal money comes through, you can nominate a bunch of these projects for the federal match,
Correct.
and then you only have to pay 9%.
Okay, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, so through the mayor to Mr. McKee, what I would plan to do, if this were to get on the ballot and approved by the voters, I would sponsor a resolution after that voter approval to have the assembly direct me to sell bonds. Because at that point, I would want to have that on public record, how we would intend to pay that debt back. So that's kind of the strategy I would, or the approach that I would use if the voters approve this, because at that point, I would want to have a conversation about how we're going to pay it back before we sell the bonds.
Well, I'll just say this about the road bond package in itself and the roads. When, you know, I listened to the testimony on Point McKenzie Road and West Lakes Road and probably every road that's in this bond package, you know, the compelling argument, you know, the Matsu Borough's just fallen behind in the repair and upkeep of their arterials and collectors. That's just what's happened to us over the past years. And then the population is growing, the use is growing, and I'm very hopeful of that federal money coming in with the infrastructure money, but we'll wait and see. I think the cost of this, Mr. McKee, would be about, if this is to go, where to go, Mr. Manager and Cheyenne Handel could correct me, Chief Financial Officer, $4 to $5 million a year. Is that correct?
If it was a $60 million package.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, it would be about a $5 million payback on an annual basis if it was a $60 million package.
So the necessity of the road bond package is just something that at this point in time in the Matsu Borough's history and growth, I think the census showed us where we were in growth and how fast we're growing. We're the fastest, certainly in the state of Alaska. And I think we were close to the top of the fastest growing area in America. And so you can see what's happening to us and the need is here. And, you know, and that testimony, like I said, you know, the compelling testimony on Point McKenzie Road, West Lakes Road, and probably every other project is hard for me to not take into account. So, but that's my take on this road bond. And yes, we have to pay for it, Mr. McKee. But yes,
Mr.
it
Mayor?
gives the manager some options to look at it. So, Mr. Hale?
I was just curious, are we still on the motion to postpone indefinitely?
All right, Madam Clerk, just reminded me. Okay, Mr. McKee's motion to postpone indefinitely the road bond package.
Okay, so I will hold my further comments until after this one has been
Let's
decided.
vote on the motion to, go ahead and vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely the road bond package. And then Madam Clerk will call you two on the telephone.
Assemblymember Hale.
No.
Assemblymember Yunt.
No.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to look at this voting board. Apparently this one is still shorting out. Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember McKee in support.
Okay, so the motion to postpone indefinitely has failed. Let's continue debate and motions on 21076. Any more motions? Ms. Nowers?
I would move to strike project number 6, which is the inner outer Springer Loop pathway at 1 million. This is a really good project, connects 2 pathways around Palmer, and pathways have gotten some bad, I don't know, comments tonight, but you also hear about people almost getting hit on roads, and you hear about how much people use pathways and build. So it's hard to pull this project out for me, but I feel like a smaller package is better when we're talking about not going to property taxes for the source of revenue. So if we're at 70, we're trying to fund that with a fuel tax or a gravel tax, that's harder to get paid back than if we're at 50. So the reason I'm pulling this is not because it's not a valuable project, but to try to get this package smaller. And I hope to find other sources of funding for this to go forward. And it's also in my district, by the way.
Okay, the motion is to delete project 6, inner outer Springer Loop pathway. Any objection to that motion? Mr. Hale?
I will defer to the assembly member of the district, so no.
Mr. Yant?
Same, I support Stephanie, so I'm a no vote.
Okay, the motion to, anybody else, anybody here object to the motion? Seeing and hearing none, no objection. Project 6 is removed. Other comments, other motions? I don't think I'm going to recognize her in this one.
Mr. Mayor?
Hale. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Hale.
Yes, so, I would like to move to remove project number 17, Boyd Road to Norman Avenue. And I would like to apologize to my fellow assembly members who I asked to provide their amendments in writing before the meeting, because I did not. But the manager recommended this, and then based on the public testimony tonight, I would like to remove this project from our bond package. And that's all I have to say about it.
And that was project number what, Ms. Manager? Project 17.
Number 17, it's Boyd Road to Norman Avenue. It is in my district.
How much money was that, Mr. Hale? $3 million, okay. Any objection to Mr. Hale's motion to remove Boyd Road, $3 million from the bond package?
No objection from Young.
Any objection here in the assembly chambers? Okay, hearing and seeing no objection, Boyd Road is deleted. Other motions? I'm not going to recognize. Okay, Ms. Nowers, go ahead, but be gentle.
Thank you, through the mayor. I'm going to move to remove project number 8, the Point McKenzie Road reconstruction. Again, this is a very valuable project, and I value the comments that came tonight, but I do think this is the one most likely to get some state or federal funding because of the port and the prison being there. And it's a large amount of money in this package. It's 14% of the overall cost in a package that has 17 projects. So I think it has a good chance of being funded. And again, in order to pass a package and then have a reasonable way to fund it and get some projects moving and not burden property tax owners, that's the only reason I'm suggesting this one be pulled from the package.
Okay, so we got Mr. Sumner.
So Mr. Mayor, I think that does sound pretty reasonable, but I would recommend against deleting entirely the project, but rather do a partial match for it, and then we just don't do it if we don't get the match. I think would be better than completely pulling it, because then we would have no authorization to spend area-wide money on it. So.
Okay. The manager,
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hale, then Mr. We'll do Mr. Hale and we'll come to Mr. 2. Mr. Hale?
Yes, I would just say that I would like to hear from the individual whose district that is in, their opinion on the proposed amendment.
Mr. 2.
I approve the project, and I think by the testimony that we heard tonight that the need is definitely there. I think, we think of the port and we think of the prison and we think of Ada, the new roads going out there. And I think without a doubt there's a need there, and I'm going to support that project.
Okay, the manager is recommending not deleting the project. The manager is recommending reducing the project to $8 million. What do you think of that, Mr. 2? Is that?
If the borough manager thinks that that's what we can do, then I would be good with it.
Okay, on the main motion, Ms. Nowers.
I just have a question through the attorney. If this project did not make it on the bond package and there was federal infrastructure funds available and we were given $8 million, could we put it towards this project even if it doesn't go forward on the bond proposal?
If you'd have to put it through the RSA, but yeah, you could. Some of them raised the point, though, you wouldn't be able to use area-wide funds as a match. You'd have to find a different source.
So if the federal funds came with a match requirement, that could be an issue, but if the federal funds did not come with a match requirement, we could spend it.
Absolutely.
These bond package roads would be shovel-ready projects, Ms. Nowers. I think we'd be in a lot better position with the federal money coming down through the state to make the argument that that state money could go to this project if it's on the bond package, rather than it's
Mr. Mayor? At first, I was in full support of Stephanie's amendment here. I'm the new kid on the block, though, and I got a lot to learn about how government works. And so I appreciate what she's trying to do here. It is 14% of the budget for 1/17 of the projects. And I do appreciate that, but after learning, after hearing what our attorney said yeah, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to support on this just because I think it's going to take away our authority, our ability to work on it if we were given a match. So if that's my understanding at least, and so if that's the case, then.
Okay, on the motion to Ms. Nauers.
Just
what
one
has
last comment.
Final
I
word,
mean,
okay. Right.
Something I'm worried about is the voters and just whether they will say yes to a bigger package. So I'd like to see something go forward. So that's one of my concerns on this. So could I ask if we do not delete that project where we're sitting with a total bond package with all the amendments that have been made so far? Can we
You're
get a
at
total
6.5 million reduction.
from 73?
Yeah.
67 million.
6. I had 3 million Boyd, 2.5 Lakes, 1 million Inner. Oh, excuse me. I stand corrected. 6. Okay. 6 million
Mayor.
reduction.
So Assemblymember Nowers, we're at 67,685,000.
I'm going to have to still support removing it for that reason.
Okay, on the motion to remove project number 8, Point McKenzie Road reconstruction. Is there objection to that? There is definitely
Yes, sir.
objection, so, okay, go ahead and vote, and Madam Clerk will call you two on the telephone. Yes.
Assemblymember Yunt,
No.
Assemblymember Hale,
No.
Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember McKee and Nowers in support.
Wow, first time in history, Nowers and McKee together. Oh, things do happen. Okay, now let's do a motion, Mr. Two, under the manager's suggestion to reduce the package amount for Project 8 from 10 million to 8 million.
I make a motion to change it from 10 million to 8 million on the Point Mac Road project.
Okay,
Project number 8.
any objection to that motion by Mr. Two, reducing from 10 to 8 million, the Point McKenzie Road? Mr. Hale, any objection?
No, sir.
Mr. Yant?
No, sir.
Okay, Point McKenzie goes forward at 8 million. So now we're at 8 million, correct, Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
and then the reductions, is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we're at 8 million.
Okay, any other motions, Mr. Sumner?
Yeah, I move to amend project number 8 from 8 million to 2 million. Point McKenzie Road. And my reasoning would be that while I do think that we should go to the ballot to authorize the use of area-wide money in the event that there is money to match, I do not believe that we should do this project solely with borough taxpayer dollars.
Okay, so the motion by Mr. Sumner is project number 8, Point McKenzie Road, reducing it from the just set 8 million to 2 million on the road project.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Yant.
I have a question for the attorney. So if this were to pass and we had 2 million available in the bond package and say the feds brought in 10 with some sort of match requirement, could that goof us up?
Yeah, you would be able to use, if your question is, could we use it as a match? The answer is yes.
It would depend on the level of the match though, right?
Well, up to $2 million. If all the other projects move forward and all the other projects spend their amounts, then yeah, $2 million would be remaining for match.
Okay. Ms. Nowers?
I just have a question. Do we have a typical percentage that we've seen on federal match for road projects?
It's 91 point something. I don't know if Terry knows exactly. Federal, huh? It's 90.9 or something weird like that. So when the federal government funnels money through DOT, through federal DOT to state DOT, the match requirement is just under 10%. It's a weird, it's like the federal share is 90.9 and the local share is 0.91 or something like that. It's just under 10%, just a hair under 10%.
So we could leverage quite a bit of money if there is a match.
Well, with all due respect to Mr. Sumner, this is not the way to go on this road bond package. The 8 million probably is the more accurate figure that it should go forward as. And if the federal money comes down, you know, that would be good. But this is what it's going to take to reconstruct this road at some level to help this community out. And that's what this road bond package needs to point out. So, but.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just once again, I would be interested in what the assembly member from the district involved would have to say about this particular amendment.
Mr. Two?
I would like to fund it $8 million.
Okay, Mr. Sumner's motion is to reduce project 8 from 8 million to 2 million. Is there any objection to that motion? There's objection, so go ahead and vote for the clerk.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Madam, you can vote and Madam Clerk will be calling you to Telephonics.
Assemblymember Hale,
No.
Assemblymember Yunt,
No.
Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember McKee and Nowers in support.
I tell you, this is a historic night in the Matsu Borough Assembly. The Nowers McKee night, so thank you for that motion, Mr. Sumner. And, okay, that motion fails. Other motions on the road bond, Ms. Bovee?
Again, I apologize for not bringing this forward sooner. Project number 15, Cherry Lake Drive, Karen Avenue, King Arthur Drive. I would like to update that to 3.5 million based on an updated cost estimate from the borough manager for a savings of, somebody do the math for me.
How much are you reducing it by?
The new total is 3.5 million, correct?
For a reduction of what, Mr. Manager?
3.5 million.
So half.
I would like the new total to be 3.5, so it's 4 something.
$4.55 million reduction, correct? Leaving a total of 3.5 million for the motion.
Correct.
Discussion, Ms. Bovee?
I believe this was a updated engineer's estimate.
Mr. Manager?
4.55 million. Kenny, 4.55 million reduction. Is that what you're tracking? So the reduction would be 4.55 million to a total of 3.5 million.
Okay.
I'm looking for the nod in the back. Our expert's behind that computer. I'm trusting him.
Okay, we got 2 nods back there, so we'll go with that. Thank you. Okay, everybody understand the motion to reduce Cherry Lake by 4.55 million, leaving 3.5 million. Any objection to that motion by Ms. Bovee? Mr. Hale, any objection?
No, sir.
Mr. Yount? Mr. Yount, any objection to Ms. Bovee's motion?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Bovee's motion on Cherry Lane passes. Other motions or discussion on the road bond package? Madam Clerk advises us we're at total road bond package after motions and deletions, 61,135,000.
Mr. Mayor,
Hang on a second, Mr. Hale. We're waiting for a confirmation on the,
That's what I have.
okay, so 61,135,000 is where we're at right now. Mr. Hale?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that I think that these kinds of investments in our community are super important. And I would like to thank all of the assembly members tonight for working on this and giving their input to this for the last couple of months. And that this is going to be a really good thing for the Matanuska-Susitna Borough. Thank you.
Okay, any other,
Let's just confirm that.
okay, sir, why don't you come forward and,
Yeah, so the new number is 61.135. That's what I have.
okay, what's your name, sir?
Sorry. Kenny Clewine, GIS manager.
Thank you. Okay, on the ordinance itself, is there any more discussion after the motions on 21076? The bond package itself as amended.
We're voting on the bond package.
We're going to vote on the bond package as amended with reductions down to 61,135,000. That's what we're discussing it. Yeah, we're still in discussion. So any further discussions? Mr. Hale, Mr. Yant? Okay.
No, sir.
Mr. McKee is objecting to passing it as amended, so Madam Clerk will conduct a vote.
Assemblymember Yant.
I want to clarify my vote. If am I voting on George's or the whole package as a whole?
You're voting on the main motion with all the amendments, so the whole package as a whole with all the amendments.
Yes.
Assemblymember Hale.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember McKee opposed.
Okay, so we have passed the ordinance 21076 as amended with, very pleased with that, especially the debate tonight and all of the, and thank you to all the folks that come on in tonight to speak on the roads. We appreciate that testimony. So, and we're going to move on. Let's take a break real quick. Why don't we recess for, let's do a full minute recess.
A full minute?
Excuse me, I better get my mic back. We're going to go back on record. The time is 8:05 PM. We're at public hearings. We're going to go to ordinance 21079, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance amending MSB 3.04046 to provide that the borough manager must propose an annual budget with education annual operating funds set at 60% at the proposed area-wide real property tax mill rate. And if you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff report, we'll start with Mr. Spropoulos and the manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly, this ordinance is sponsored by the mayor and Assemblymember McKee. If you remember at the end of this year's budget on May 13th, during comments, Mr. McKee actually had made some comments about his dissatisfaction with the school funding level because of the way the ordinance was written. And rather than move for reconsideration and delay and potentially open up the entire budget, the proposal was to come forward with this ordinance, which is here tonight, to revise the funding formula. The funding formula as written here tonight would revise the funding formula. As it currently stands, the manager is directed to prepare his budget with a 6.3 mil equivalent delivered to the school district. And over the past couple of years, what that's shown is that when the overall area-wide mill rate fluctuates generally downward, that the school district appropriation has been remaining level, which means any downward movement on the area-wide mill rate is all absorbed by borough operations. This ordinance tonight would tie the school district appropriation to the overall proposed budget amount at 60%. And I'll let the manager talk further to the numbers.
Through the mayor. So the situation that occurred this year when we looked at assessed values, which are a critical factor in calculating what an area-wide mill rate would look like and what kind of tax revenues that would actually raise, the taxable assessed value for the borough went up by 5.67%. The average, so the assembly looked at that, and there were a number of members that talked about a need for an offset, that it wouldn't make sense for us to pass along a 5.67% increase in property taxes to our citizens. So we looked at what that offset might look like, and then the reduction in the area-wide mill rate from, I believe, 10.322 down to 9.942 represented that offset. So what that offset really equated to for your average property tax owner is an increase of about 2% due to that reduction in the overall area-wide mill rate. So as the attorney mentioned, I'm required by code to put out a letter to the school district with a 6.3 mil local education contribution in, I believe, January, February timeframe. So what that ended up doing to actual revenues from a borough perspective is the property tax revenue available for the school district did increase by 5.67% because that was the increase of the taxable assessed value. The property tax revenue available for the borough operations actually decreased by 3.44% because we had to have that offset to get to about 2%. So by reducing that area-wide mill rate and getting to an overall 2% increase, the borough operations ended up taking a reduction of 3.44 when schools went up 5.67. So what this intends to do is look for a solution that still provides predictability to the district, which was one of the reasons that the code was put in place a few years ago. I think that is an important thing to retain, but also to provide a more sustainable way forward. Arguably, I would make the argument that a 3.44% reduction is not sustainable, and a 5.67% increase is probably not sustainable if it's going to continue to work itself out. And I also think that we have that concern, as the attorney alluded to, with last minute reductions late in the budgeting process. So it's difficult because the assembly really doesn't take action on the budget, even though the budget process starts in earnest in April, until mid to late May, when the overall budget is actually deliberated and amendments are made. So it really puts the district, and I won't speak for the district, but it puts the district in a pickle because they've already built and passed their budget through the school board because they're required to transmit it to the borough either at the end of March or the 1st of April. So the process doesn't lend itself to an outcome where the assembly might want to reduce the overall area-wide mill rate to offset, a significant increase in taxable assessed value. Does that help? I know it's a bit complicated.
Well, before I open the public hearing, and I'll just say this, I did join in with Mr. McKee on bringing this ordinance forward. 03-04-046 was passed several years ago by Mr. Leonard was on it, Senator Leonard and Senator Qualky was on it. It was passed 6.3 mils at a point in time when all the school bond debt was pretty much assured coming from the state of Alaska in a 70-30 formula, and all of a sudden, soon after that quit. We don't even know what level we're at right now with the legislature still in session, but it's well below. Normally we'd get 16 to 18 million. We're well below that. We're probably down into 3-4 million, and the chief financial officer could correct me if I'm wrong in the budget. So that has changed the parameters for us budgeting. We know that it's all property taxes here in the Mat-Su Borough as a general rule. We know that the level, we have the cap at 10.5 mils, and so we have to operate within that. So I'm just hoping to have good testimony. And I know there's two sides of the story. I know the school district is here, and I know we all respect the school district, and I hope it's reverse. And we all have issues that we're concerned about. I know the school district's issues is they really can't control their funding. And that's a horrible situation. I realize that, being down at the state and through the borough. The only thing I want is leaving as mayor is for the manager and the assembly to have some variable where they can have a little bit of wiggle room in budgeting. And so that's all I have to say in that. So we'll open the public hearing at this time. We do have a sign-up list, and we'll go with Barbara Gerard first.
Thank you. Good evening, Borough Mayor, Borough staff, and Borough Assembly members. My name is Barbara Gerard. I am the principal of Academy Charter School. Academy Charter School is celebrating the 25th year to be a proud school of the Mat-Su Borough, and that's an amazing statement I can make, so it's pretty exciting. You, our Borough Assembly members, are strong supporters of schools and education as a whole. So I'm puzzled to see that the Assembly is considering an ordinance that, if passed, could result in a 5% reduction to the school district funding. And that equates to about $3.5 million lost to school funding each year. We, your schools and district, cannot make do with less, let alone $3.5 million. Yes, you have many projects that need funding, but teaching kids to read, write, and build important work skills grows great citizens. We need a well-informed, knowledgeable, and skilled workforce. Students get 1 year in kindergarten and 1 year in first grade, and so on. There's no do-overs for those children. Schools have to be able to plan. We need stability and predictability in our budget so that we can make that kindergarten year the best possible kindergarten year, or that first grader or that seventh grader having the best year possible. Please honor the current ordinance as it is, guaranteeing the local funding of 6.3 mils to the district so that we can provide consistency and sustainability to the students of the Mat-Su Borough. We, you and I, must remain strong and protect our schools. As champions of education, I strongly agree and encourage you to stand together and keep the ordinance as it is, with 6.3 mils as the permanent and fair number for our kids. Thank you for standing strong for education, and thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Donna Adams. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Borough Assembly members, Borough Mayor, and Borough staff. My name is Donna Adams. I'm a parent, a grandparent, and a great-grandparent of my grandchildren who attended Academy Charter School. And I am here to strongly encourage you, our borough government, to strike down the rewrite of the ordinance and honor the one that provides predictability and sustainability for the district with the set mill rate of 6.3. Schools cannot sustain the ups and downs that would likely occur with the proposed sliding scale. The current ordinance provides a guarantee of local funds, 6.3 mils, to ensure consistency and sustainability for the budget of the Matsu Borough Schools. I remember those years before we had set the mill rate portion, when parents and grandparents across the school district had to come out each May and plead that the Borough Assembly would fully fund the district's budget. It was a miserable situation, uncomfortable for all involved. No one wants to go back to the begging and the pleading of those years, especially when we have an ordinance that works. I encourage you to please vote down the rewrite of the ordinance and keep the one that ensures students in the Matsu Borough have consistency and the opportunity to learn to read and write and build those math skills. A great school year with a great teacher isn't negotiable. The families of the Matsu Borough School District entrust you to protect schools, and it is your number one job to keep the school strong, and I thank you. And these students actually are our present that hopefully will run this country better than what it is now.
Thank you. Mark Bailey.
Thank you, members of the Assembly, Borough Mayor, Manager, and staffs. I'm proud to say I'm a product of our local school district, Borough. I went to Colony High School, graduated from there. I know there's another member that did. I am opposed to this ordinance. I believe we should keep sustainability with our mill rate for education. We need to fund our educators, fund our schools. It is one of the highest priorities of a local government to be funding an education system that is accessible to all. And by putting it on the chopping block, that is putting the future of our children, their potential on the chopping block. I disagree with lowering the mill rate at all below 6.3. We need to be able to pay for schools, operations. We still need to be able to pay for teachers. We need to be able to pay for competent teachers to recruit them to the borough. We have a brain drain, losing them to Anchorage. This is one of the things we cannot budge on. We need to have fully funded schools and educators. And I thank the Assembly for their time.
Thank you. Joshua Rickey.
Good evening. Thank you, Borough Mayor, Assembly members, and staff. My name is Joshua Rocky. I'm the current principal at Butte Elementary School. Been teaching in the district for 15 years. Thank you very much for your commitment to funding our schools at a mill rate of 6.3 since 2018. The stability has improved our budgeting, our predictability, and our hiring process. One of my former mentors, Mark Hoffman, who used to be principal at Shared Elementary, told me when I was learning how to be a principal that my most important job as a principal is hiring of teachers, as necessary also firing teachers. This stability has allowed us to hire both the best and the brightest teachers early in the process. Folks that work in the school district and in the schools see that when we don't hire early, that those folks go to other places. They go to Anchorage, they go to Kenai, they go to Fairbanks. But that stability has only come since we've had this mill rate in place. Proposed ordinance results in about 5% reduction or 3.5 million annually based on the current mill rate. As Dr. Trainee said, that's the equivalent of one grade school. You can do the math a bunch of different ways. We don't always just do a cut to one thing, but 35 teachers, 70 classified staff, you can kind of pick what it is, but there'll be an impact. Under the current education formula, the state of Alaska reduces the support of our district based on the year-to-year growth of our tax base. In essence, this isn't just a 3.5 million loss to the school district. It also is a loss from state revenue because of the way that they are tied together. We need local funding to be predictable and scalable to keep pace with inflation and any increases to student enrollment. Schools are about to open tomorrow. We just had our open house tonight at Butte, a bunch of people there, kids are excited. If we've learned anything in the last 18 months from COVID, it's that people in general are craving things that they can hold on to that they're familiar with. That's especially true with our students. They're looking for things that they can look to that are familiar. The staff member that remains from last year, that's a comfort to them. The staff member that was there from the year before, that's a comfort to them. This ordinance maintains that consistency for us, for the students, but also for the staff. So I thank you very much for your commitment to 6.3 mils. Please continue to provide the stability for both our students and staff by maintaining this rate as written in the ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have on the sign-up list. Sir, Mike Coons, come forward, and then, are there any telephonics? Not yet, okay.
My name is Mike Coons. I live on Lazy Mountain. I'm a drink, dual retired income, no kids. So for a long time, I always kind of thought that I didn't have a dog in the fight when it comes down to schools, but I do. I've been told over the last several years, 60% of my property taxes goes to schools. We're 49th in the nation. 50, 51. I've even heard as low as 51st behind Washington, D.C. But yet, we still spend this money. We're still spending boatloads of money. And the outcome base that we're seeing isn't all that great. We got kids that not only can't read at third grade level, they can't read true history. Not 1694 history, but 1776 history. They can't figure, if they can't read that, and they can't read the words to help them get through math, then how are they going to get through the math? So, the question I had when this whole thing came up, and I really wasn't prepared to even to speak, was, okay, is this up to 60%? Can this go below 60%? Which I'd be all for. Is that going to be, is the school board then going to come back and say, okay, this is the amount of money we want, and it's at 58%? I'd go along with that. I think that would be cool. I think that would, because then that means that 58% of my property taxes is going to go to schools, and maybe, and from what I'm seeing from the school district, our school district, compared to the communist district in Anchorage, we're doing a heck of a lot better. We're still not there by any stretch of the imagination. Mr. Trainey's got a heck of a lot of work ahead of him to get us turned around. But what I'm hearing from the previous speakers is reality. We're spending 65% for the same outcome-based aspect of 49th, 50th, 51st in the nation for our kids. Why would I want to maintain that 65% or go to 66 or go to 67 or go to 70 for an outcome base that is crap? It's in the toilet, folks. It's below in the toilet nationwide. Matsu, we're doing a lot better, but it's still not good enough. We still have kids failing at a high rate, and that can't be going on. So I am reluctantly going to support this ordinance because I would hope that we can get that percentage down, the cost down, and get some teachers that are going to teach. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Madam, come on forward. State your name for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Alana Harris. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but now I feel that I need to. I am a proud mother of two wonderful boys who have attended schools from kindergarten to now middle school. Those statistics that were just recently given are vastly inaccurate. I would like to say, for one, I have two amazing children who don't just give back to the community, but they're both highly intelligent and creative children. That has to do with our district. My 5th grade son is at 7th grade level in math, English, and could easily skip a grade. But he wants to stay with his current education and with the children so he can continue on learning, not just intelligence, but also with others. This book right here is something that I use because I'm also a coach that I work within the school district as well. Our kids are our future. My children are the future. And when we take from the future, we don't have an economy. That's collapsing our economy. Teachers need stability. And I understand we do need to find a balance. Yet, at the same time, we need to be able to create a curriculum, be able to test the curriculum, and to be able to have top-rate education. And of course, that can change over time, but we still need to have the stability. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Welton, please.
Hello, I'm Sarah Welton, and I have been on the school board for 18 years. And I wish to say thank you to all of you who voted for me, and it's okay if you didn't, as I've been here. I just want to say that the formula and how it was worked out was so fantastic and such an innovative way to fund our schools and give us some stability. We do not fund to the cap for us. If we look at the big five, we are at 70+% of funding, whereas 3 of the other school districts of the big five are up there at 99+%. So the borough does not meet that standard, but we understand because we don't have the same kinds of tax base. We understand that. But the issue of funding and being stable, the 60% wouldn't necessarily be stable. I understand there are other issues and other things that have to be paid for, but education should be your most important foundation because it is what will keep the economy going in the borough. If you have poor schools, industry will not come in. They know this. If you talk to lots of different high industry places, they will not go to places if the school districts are not good. We do have a good school district. Testing does not make it good or bad. It is a way to assess how we fit with other people. But our students do very well. We made millions in scholarship funds this last year. We have very bright students. My own kids went through the district. My daughter has a master's degree. My son decided not to go on to college, but he is in the reserves, in the military, and he has worked his way up as a sergeant plus. I don't know all the military jargon, but he has worked his way through it. And he also has been stay-at-home dad the last few years and has worked with his kids to learn stuff about how to take care of all the equipment around the house, all the toys, all the things that Alaskans love to do. The kids go camping and fishing and know all this kind of stuff as well. And this is part of being an Alaskan citizen, is that we have all of these things as part of our education. I really hope that you will consider not going with this new ordinance, that you will continue the old one. It was so innovative and so good for us. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any telephonics? Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on the school funding ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Senator McKee, I'll let you move this. Turn your mic on, please.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-079, and I'd like to speak to it.
Go ahead.
When I came on the assembly 5 years ago, the savings account for the unencumbered reserve savings account for the borough was $2.5 million. The audited figure on December 31 this last year was $23 million. That means that the school district had $4 million on the average every year in excess that they did not spend in either salaries or instruction. Okay? They had, now, on top of that, on July 6th, I think it was, they received $5 million in COVID money. And then on December 3rd, they received another $15 million. That equals $20 million, but they couldn't put that in savings account because that would invoke a penalty. There's a level they can't go over. So what they did is they created another account over here, okay? That's the COVID account. Now, additionally, they are looking at getting $38 million more from COVID over the next 3 years. So when people tell me they're short of money, I say garbage, okay? The superintendent said if we cut from 6.3 to 60%, he'd have to close the school. Why doesn't he just take some money out of his savings account to keep it open? Okay, there is no shortage of money in the school district. Now, I actually tried to come up with a formula where we did it performance-based, okay? By that, I mean you take a level, let's say 2019, grades 4 and 8. And if their grades go up, on it, you give an additional $5 million. If their grades go down, you cut the budget $5 million, okay? But now no one wants to look at performance, okay, as a method in education. It has been said that, in fact, we're what, number 3 funded, I think, in the United States. We are not in the top 3 school districts in the United States. We are nowhere close, folks. We couldn't see it with binoculars. Okay, so right now, the idea that everyone sits and says short of money or what have you. Now, the reason why the mayor and I teamed up on this, and we're an unlikely pair, I'm taller than he is, okay? On it is the 6.3 with all the money floating around, okay, was totally unrealistic. Going to a percentage for a year or 2 with all the money. Remember, I just pointed out to you where $40 million is for the school district, okay? So that gives us a couple of years to maybe come up with, say, a performance method of funding, okay? Now, I see folks shaking their head anytime I say performance, okay? Well, let me tell you, if you look at the sports teams, okay, the quarterback that gets $70 million, okay, can throw a football a long ways. He can get it over the line, right? So I think that we should, at some point in the not so distant future, look at a performance method of funding the school district.
Okay, well, I'll just do a little rebuttal time on Mr. McKee. You know, when I originally appointed Assemblymember Leonard and Assemblymember Qualkey, along with the chief financial officer and the borough manager, and I can't remember who was on that committee many years ago, when we came up with the 6.3 mils, you know, it was needed because school funding was so haphazard. It seemed to me like the school district had to come in here and almost beg for money. And it seemed like it was time to rewrite that ordinance, and they did, and it passed, and it worked. I still remember to this very day, the call from the governor, former governor, about he had to cut school bond debt. He was going to cut us, I can't remember, $6 or $7 million. I remember that phone call very well. That changed the dynamics of it. And then, of course, the current governor came in, and first of all, it was $9 million reduction in school bond debt, and then $18 million reduction in school bond debt. And this year, right now, we're, I think, about $16 million less in our school bond debt. That was a game changer for me and for the for this ordinance. And so when the budget passed, then it passed, and I think it passed unanimously. And then Mr. McKee asked for reconsideration of it, which had opened the door on the budget. It'd be the first time the budget was reconsidered. I thought it'd be better to bring this ordinance in separately because that's what he wanted to talk about. So that's how this happened. But, and I do agree with this ordinance. I'll tell you that right now, because it does give the manager some flexibility in setting the budget. And I hope, and this is my biggest hope, I hope the state legislature will start refunding school bond debt, which will put us in a situation where the 6.3 mills could be honored. And so, Mr. McKee.
I would just like to point out one thing. When I say that the school district has a lot of money, remember, folks, the school district loaned the borough $11 million this year. Okay?
Well, we're very thankful for that school district. You know, this helped us get Houston High School and the contract on the ground and built. So we're very thankful for that. So don't think that I think the same as that. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Hale and Mr. Sumner.
I would just like to say that it really doesn't matter what the federal government gives or the state government gives to our school district. Schooling our children is a local responsibility, and that's our job. That is our job. Period. Straight up. We can throw extra state money at it. We can throw extra federal money at it. But what really counts in the long run is what we do to educate our children. So I would just like to say that in rebuttal to pretty much all of the other assembly members' points.
Mr. Sumner.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say that this is an exceptionally bad idea, and I'd like to explain a couple of reasons why. If we tie the school funding to the overall property tax rate, then you're going to put a pretty powerful constituency behind behind supporting a higher property tax rate. We will, and I think in all likelihood, never have a area-wide mill rate that is as low as it is right now, again, after that. Additionally, there is something to be said about funding certainty to organizations. Now, it is true that the school district has substantial fund reserves, but I would ask what you think would happen if we introduce funding uncertainty into their revenue streams. And I would point to what happened with our own body when the school bond debt reimbursement became less certain. We created a reserve for the eventuality of that revenue stream not being realized. And I think it's pretty natural that most government bodies and bodies in general, when they have more uncertainty in their revenue streams, are going to divert more of their funds towards reserves. And really, while they are receiving quite a bit aside from the argument about what the proper amount to fund the school district is, I can't imagine that really anybody would agree that it's proper to give the school district more money than they need so that they can sit on a fund balance. That doesn't help the students. It doesn't help the property taxpayers. It really doesn't help anybody. So, we have a tax cap. It says 6.3. I think we've had that for 3-4 years. It's not a perfect situation, but I think that this would make things substantially worse. So, yeah, I'm going to oppose this.
Okay, next. Ms. Nowers? Mr. Hale, were you up next? Okay, Ms. Nowers.
No, sir. I think I said all I had to say.
Okay, Ms. Nowers.
Thank you. I think I'm persuaded this is not the right thing to do, but I kind of had two comments. One, I really object to throwing the Mat-Su School District in with the rest of the state. If you're going to talk about education, look at the facts in terms of how the Mat-Su is testing. I say as a parent who's had 2 kids to go through that school and have a national merit semifinal, not semifinalist, she was a finalist, in valedictorian. The teachers do amazing work in there. And if you want to test them on what they're dealing with in those schools. You've got kids of all varying abilities. And I really think part of our problem is we're testing kids to death. And we're asking them to regurgitate, and those tests we really need them to be thinkers. And we keep as elected officials saying, you got to test them and not trust in the teachers. But the reality is the Mat-Su School District is, there's room for improvement, right? Okay. But we are nowhere near last. We're about above average. And if you look at where the kids come in to where they go out, there's improvement overall. So I don't mind having a discussion about schools, but if you're really talking about improving a system, you make the distinction between who's doing well, who's not, and you look at those factors and you address the factors. So I keep hearing that repeated, and I just wanted to address that. I don't think this was intended to cut the school district. We were in an unusual situation in that property taxes went through the roof in the middle of a pandemic. We went up 7%. So I think the school district counts on a 2% increase every year. So this was a way for the borough manager to kind of signal an amount early on in the process that might be more along the lines of a 2% increase than a 7% increase. But I don't like creating uncertainty. I do think the 6.3 is where we start. The reality is the assembly could always come in and reduce that amount. But if it gives more certainty to folks to feel like the 6.3 is a starting place. But I can tell you, if we end up with another 7% increase in property values and we're looking at having to not be able to share it equally across the school district and borough operations, which also have real needs, I will have to look seriously at whether that's we're talking about the right amount, not a cut. We're talking about the right amount of increase.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Yan.
Yeah, I'd like to build on a little bit of what Jesse was saying and Stephanie Wolf. I don't think there's anybody on our body who really wants to cut. This isn't about cutting teachers' salaries or pay. And, I respect Mr. McKee's approach to the performance base, but I do want to point out that the Mat-Su School District scores are substantially better than most other school districts, if not all, in certain areas in the state of Alaska. And teaching it holds a special place in my heart. It's what I wanted to do before I got hurt in high school and couldn't go to college on a wrestling scholarship. I'm still super close with many of the teachers, and when I came back from Moose Camp last year, I made a post on Facebook that got over 1,000 engagements, speaking in support of our teachers and why I believe they should be the highest paid teachers in the state. I want to attract the best talent. I believe I live in the best community in the state of Alaska. And I think we all believe that. With that being said, I definitely understand why you and Mr. McKee brought this forward. I don't think anybody that I know would want to cut our schools' pay or funds, but I also don't think that I know anybody in our borough or district who would say that we want to see the school district have 30, 50, $80 million in savings, and we are headed in that direction. So there's a valid reason to look at both sides of this argument, or debate, I should say. I just want to make it known that I really support our teachers. I'm super grateful. 4 of my kids are still in the district. 2 have graduated and are in college now. But I'm struggling with this one from a financial perspective. This makes all the sense in the world, right? If the school district hadn't just put $11 million in on that school, they'd have $34 million in reserves, plus the $20 million of COVID money and possibly up to $38 million more coming. But I think for me, from a timing perspective, I'd really like to stay at the 6.3 for now and let it be a fluid situation, kind of like Mrs. Nowers was talking about, right? Let this be a fluid situation where we monitor it moving forward. I do have all the faith in the world in our school board. I think they're absolutely awesome. And when it comes time to build another school or do other things or possibly deferred maintenance in the future, these schools are going to need maintenance, that they'll be there. And my last point to this is that I want to clarify that it's, yes, the school district gave us $11 million, right? But it's not their money. It's not our money. It's the taxpayers' money, right? And this needs to be a fluid situation moving forward, because if we remain at the 6.3 and real estate levels climb like they are, we're not even taking into consideration, we talk about it, they rose by over 7%, right? But that doesn't even take into consideration all the new commercial real estate that went in, right? And the other stuff that was a tax basis of 0 prior to this. So we are growing really fast, but for me, I think from a timing perspective, I want to keep this a fluid situation for another year. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate the time.
I guess I have a question for the borough attorney. Something Ms. Nowers, both Ms. Nowers and Mr. Yant said, like the current ordinance 0304046 sets 6.3 mils. They're suggesting that the assembly could change that at any time during the budgeting process. Is that correct?
I do, Mayor, but.
No, I'm talking to Mr. Spropoulos first,
Okay,
the borough attorney.
sorry.
It's okay. So remember, what this ordinance does is it directs the manager on how to prepare the budget.
No, I'm talking about
And as-
under the current 6.3 mils, can the assembly change that millage rate? Even though the ordinance says it's 6.3 mils, can they do it 5.8 mils?
Well, during the budget, the assembly could make a motion to either increase or decrease the dollar amount that would go to the school district.
Which could
But
change the mill rate.
But it would change the equivalent mill rate. But to change how it gets presented and therefore transmitted to the school district in February, I believe it
But
is.
during the budget process, the assembly could set that mill rate at 6 mils or 5.8 mils under the current ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Okay, Mr. McKee?
Everyone seems to be blazing right by the fact that the school district has in fact increased a savings account by $4 million a year on the average. The last time I looked, the school district is a subdivision of the borough. They're not private sector who is entitled to a profit. Okay, and that's what is being done. There is right now what? A $12 million profit plus $40 million in their COVID fund. And everybody blazes right by that. When Captain, whatever his name was on the Starship Enterprise, got into an area which he couldn't understand what was happening, he'd say, "Beam me up, Scotty." Well, beam me up, Scotty. I don't know what's going on with you people.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hale.
Yeah, I would just like to address that real quick. Look, if you have a set budget and all of a sudden some excess money comes in, like some COVID money or some whatever, how do you blame them for putting in the savings account for future use when all of a sudden this extra money comes in? How do you blame those folks for putting it in a savings account to use for later? I don't understand the argument, I guess.
Okay, Ms. Bovee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate the intent of this ordinance. These are kind of strange times, and we had a strange budget discussion with the higher assessments. But thinking bigger picture here, I cannot, in good conscience, potentially cut the funding to the schools in my district. 7 of which are Title I schools, meaning that they're serving financially challenged families. So in addition to that, they're also dealing with COVID currently, and I don't think any of them need more to worry about right now. So I'm going to oppose this.
Okay, anything further on 21079 discussion? Any objection to passing 21079?
Yes.
Okay. So there's objection to 21079, so Madam Clerk, please conduct a vote.
Assemblymember Hale.
No.
Assemblymember Yunt. Assemblymember Yunt.
Sorry, I had my phone muted. No.
Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember 2 and McKee in support.
Okay, let's go to ordinance 21080, Madam Clerk.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance 21080, an ordinance authorizing the manager to enter into a commercial use permit with Co-Alaska Incorporated for the use of borough-owned land and improvements within the Point McKenzie Port District located within Section 26, Township 14 North, Range 4 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska, for a term that exceeds 18 months. MSB Title 180210.
Staff report?
Thank you, Mayor, Assembly members. Tracy McDaniel, I'm with the Land and Resource Management Division. In front of you tonight is an ordinance for the Alaska commercial land and building permit to continue renting the former NPI lease building down there at the port. They were currently renting it since May of 2020, and we're trying to execute a new permit that is borough approved. Since the permit exceeds 18 months, Borough Assembly is required. It's about a 20-month permit. And if you have any questions,
Okay.
answer.
Okay, thank you for the staff report. Appreciate it. I'll open a public hearing at this time. I have a sign up, Herman Rumfeld. Herman Rumfeld. Any telephonics? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this lease ordinance? Herman Rumfeld, he signed up for this, so. Okay, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Mr. Two, could you move this, please?
Yeah, I move to adopt ordinance 21-080.
Discussion? Any objection to passing 21081? Excuse me, 80, excuse me. 21080, any negative? So 21080.
No objection from you.
Okay, Mr. Hale, I assume not to.
No objection.
Okay, Madam Clerk, ordinance 21081 and resolution 21081.
An ordinance approving an appropriation of $16,320 from the Enhanced 911 Fund balance to project to allow the city of Wasilla to obtain reimbursement from the Enhanced 911 surcharge funding for a Solacom Guardian Solutions 911 media server system with accompanying resolution 21081, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for a project to allow the city of Wasilla to obtain reimbursement from the Enhanced 911 surcharge funding for a Solacom Guardian Solution 911 media server system. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff report?
Good evening, Mayor, Assembly members, and staff. Ken Barkley, Director of Emergency Services. So this money it's out of the E911 funds, and it's to reimburse the city of Wasilla for the purchase of the Solacom Guardian Solutions 911 system. What the systems does is if MATCOM receives a 911 call during a disaster situation, large-scale emergency, what it will do, after 30 seconds, the call would transfer over to 9G base. What this does is if someone calls 911, we're experiencing a large-scale emergency, it'll answer the phone call, say you've reached 911, your call will be ordered, and the answer it was received. Versus right now, it just rings and rings and rings. And then in 20 seconds, it transfers over to 9G base, then they take the information and then they transfer it back to MATCOM. So this is going to alleviate the transferring and then a better service for the citizens at Dial 911.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I will open the public hearing at this time. We don't have a sign-up list. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this ordinance and resolution? Any telephonics? Okay, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Ms. Bovee.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-081 and resolution 21-081.
Okay, any discussion? Any objection to passing 21081 and resolution 21081? Mr. Hale or Mr. Yacht, any objection?
No, sir.
No objection.
Okay, no objection here in Assembly Chambers. That ordinance and resolution passes. Madam Clerk, ordinance 21082 and resolution 21082.
An ordinance to accept and appropriate COVID-19 disaster relief funds of $125,176.27 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency with accompanying resolution 21082, a resolution approving the scope of work and budget for COVID-19 disaster relief funds.
Okay, staff report.
Through the mayor to the assembly, this ordinance is to accept and approve an additional $125,000 to reimburse the borough for costs related to the response and protective measures.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing at this time. We do not have a sign-up list. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this ordinance and resolution? Any telephonics? Okay, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Ms. Bovee.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-082 and resolution 21-082.
Any discussion or debate? Any objection to passing the ordinance and resolution? Mr. Hale or
No, sir.
Mr. Yacht, any objection?
No, sir.
Okay, seeing no objection in chambers by seven members and Mr. Yacht and Mr. Hale not objecting, it passes. Madam Clerk, ordinance 21083 and resolution 21083.
An ordinance accepting and appropriating a grant in the amount of $40,000 from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services to allow for the implementation and management of points of dispensing and medical countermeasures. The accompanying resolution 21083, a resolution approving the scope, work, and budget for a grant in the amount of $40,000 from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services for the implementation and management of points of dispensing and medical countermeasures. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Ms. Heindel?
Through the mayor to the assembly, this again is money that is coming from the Department of Health and Social Services to allow us to dispense and take medical countermeasures. Most of this money will be spent on supplies, furniture, and personnel costs to let this project go forward.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open the public hearing. We don't have a sign-up list. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this ordinance? Any telephonics? Okay, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Ms. Bovee.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-083 and resolution 21-083.
Any discussion, any debate? Any objection to passing 21083 and resolution 21083? Mr. Hale, Mr. Yacht, any objection?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, they pass. Madam Clerk, our final public hearing, 21084 and resolution 21084.
An ordinance to accept and appropriate additional disaster relief funds for Houston Middle School temporary relocation from damages sustained during the 2018 Cook Inlet earthquake with accompanying resolution 21084, a resolution amending the budget for additional disaster relief funds for Houston Middle School temporary relocation from damages sustained in the 2018 Cook Inlet earthquake. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Ms. Heindel, staff report.
Through the mayor to the assembly, this again is money from FEMA to reimburse us for costs incurred during the earthquake. Originally, FEMA applied insurance deductible to the relocation costs. After we finalized parts of the insurance settlement, FEMA went back and adjusted those numbers, and we are accepting and appropriating an additional $1.2 million towards relocation.
So this 1.2 million is this ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing at this time. Anybody in the audience wish to speak about 21084 and the resolution? Any telephonics? So I'll close the public hearing at this time. Ms. Bovee.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-084 and resolution 21-084.
Any discussion? Any debate?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Hale.
Yeah, I would just like to congratulate staff for, getting an extra 1.2 million on the project.
I think you're right. Thank you, Ms. Sandell, and all the staff that worked on this. We appreciate that. So any objection to passing this ordinance and resolution? Mr. Hale or Mr. Yant?
No objection.
Okay. They have passed. So we're at audience participation at this point in time. So we have a sign-up list. You can speak to the assembly basically about any subject you want for 3 minutes. We'll do telephonics following the sign-up list. Okay, Donna DeFusco, followed by DJ McBride.
Good evening. My name is Donna Cowart DeFusco. Did anyone happen to pick up this map at the special meeting last week? I'm not really sure who provided this handout, whether it was the borough or a third party, but nevertheless, this is a copy of a document presented in court case, Dixon and DeFusco versus the State of Alaska Department of DNR. The document was produced by DNR staff. Information on the side indicates that this was Exhibit 2347. This exhibit was admitted to the court on trial day 10, January 25th, 2016. The document on the surface appears to be an innocent pictorial of information, but in fact, it's a good example of how the state misled the court. During the last couple of assembly meetings, you've heard several property owners tell you where the location of the INHT is located. And the INHT is located on the section line alongside of Moore Road on the north side of my property. On this document, the state omitted the INHT. You know, the only national trail historical trail we have in the state, the trail that was created by the US Congress, the trail that property owners, the state, BLM, Matsu Borough, and Mushers all agreed on over 40 years ago. The INHT was inherently important information to a case that was trying to establish an RS 2477 right. The state omitted relevant information to the court. If you read in the legend, the state is claiming that there's a 400-foot wide Iditarod National Historic Trail easement in this blue area, and I realize it's kind of hard to see here, but these two places is where it is, says a 400-foot INHT easement exists. How can that be true? Because the INHT trail is on the section line. So how can an INHT trail easement move almost a quarter mile south? It can't. The state fabricated evidence, they described and they pictured information that was false. Apparently, all the state has to do is create a database, present information in a professional-looking document, print it out, pass it out, but it doesn't make it true. The state created this document, they gave it to the court, and they swore it was true. Just FYI, I'm going to put a pink X on where the Burma Road underpass project is going to be located, just because I think some people haven't been out in that area. This is where the $760,000 Burma Road underpass is expected to be placed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, DJ McBride.
Good evening, I'm DJ McBride, Chair of the RSA 15 Road Board.
And I'd like to address the reconsideration of ordinance 21068, the sale of land, specifically the 40-acre piece in Caswell Lakes. RSA 15 Road Board would like a piece of land, and this particular piece of land, if you don't sell it, would be an awesome place for us to put a maintenance yard. All we would need was 5 acres of this. The rest of it could be put aside for a park. Research shows that there is no other piece of land that's big enough for the RSA to use for a maintenance yard. All the other pieces of land that you own out here is about ½ acre. At this time, the RSA's 15 materials, such as sand for icy roads, is being stored at our road contractor's yard. Thus, when there's a need for sand, it has to come all the way from Big Lake, which causes a delay. Also, when there's a change in contractors, the materials have to move from one yard to another yard. Having our own site will be more efficient, and it would save time, materials, and money. Looking to the future, this site would be also available for the building of a sand storage building should it become necessary or required. There's also a push in the community for a park, which is what the remaining, acreage would become. There's no park or green space in this area, and the community there is filled with lots that are only about ½ acre big, so there's no green space at all there. Once all those are developed, it would just be barren. Is there any questions? Please don't sell that property.
No, that's not, thank you.
Thank you.
Russ DeFusco. Then Mike Coons.
Good evening. My name is Russ DeFusco, and as you know, my wife and I own the property where the Burma Road underpass, tunnel, and trail would be built. For the record, despite what you've heard in the media and from the mushing community, we are not anti-mushing. We are not anti-musher. And we want it clearly stated that we are also not opposed to a safe crossing of Burma Road. Our concern is over two issues. First, that the crossing as proposed is clearly not in the proper location. And second, to prevent the violation of our private property rights. You have heard testimony from countless mushers that they have crossed Burma Road at the proposed project location. That is simply false. There currently exists no such trail that would allow for that. There are only two explanations for this. First, and likely, they are simply mistaken about the location and are confusing it for other existing trails in the vicinity, including the INHT. Or they are being purposely misleading in order to create an entirely new trail crossing on our private property. If this new trail is created, we believe you and they will be surprised to learn that it would not connect to any other existing trails, and users would have to travel significantly out of their way to use the tunnel and then find no sufficient path back to their intended route. The very fact that you were considering adding funding to this project confirms this. You've also repeatedly heard that the Alaska Supreme Court found this trail to be the historic Iditarod Trail, not to be confused with the Iditarod National Historic Trail. That is also not true. They actually declined to hear evidence de novo about the trail's location and only ruled on two matters. One, that the lower court followed proper procedure, and two, that the state was authorized to present us with a $229,000 bill for the privilege of confiscating our private property. We were very surprised to learn last week that only a couple of the assembly members had actually visited the site before approving the massive expenditure of funds on it. We urge you, rather implore you, to visit the site to do your due diligence. We would be happy to facilitate a visit to our property if you would like. We are absolutely certain that you will instantly recognize that the project would be constructed in an inappropriate location and therefore will not solve the safety concerns you've heard about. Will the borough then have to construct additional underpasses at a later date at the existing crossing points? Please just get this right before it's too late. Thank you for your consideration.
Mike Coons.
My name is Mike Coons. I live on Lazy Mountain. I was going to talk about something else, but after the discussion about the roads and everything, there was an article here just recently referencing Senator Lisa Murkowski about the infrastructure bill, the 4.1 trillion or the $1.2 trillion spending bill that Congress, that Senate passed. This article kind of boiled down to actually actual numbers, and it actually came up to $4.1 million for Alaska. That wasn't counting a couple grants that didn't have a dollar figure on it, so it's probably in the neighborhood of $4.2, $4.3 million infrastructure to Alaska. Lisa Murkowski was blowing her horn on that. She was very pleased with that. So you take then on top of that Nancy Pelosi, Chucky Boy Schumer, and President Biden have all said, well, we're not going to pass the $1.27 trillion infrastructure bill unless we get the $3.3 trillion Green New Deal. So without that $3.3 trillion on top of the $1.27 trillion, we're kind of SOL. And the Nancy has already said she's going to block everything. She's going to do everything that she can unless she gets both of them. There's even latest news on it is that half of the Democrats want to have the infrastructure bill up first, and then turn down the 3 points. Then they want the 3.3, and the other ones want the 3.3 first, so they can do the 1.2. So it's a goat rope to be nice. So if the 3.3 doesn't pass, the 4.1 trillion, then so that means we don't get that 4.1 trillion, which actually, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the two of those I could say no to real easy because we don't need them. What we really need is I think it was the $500 some odd million or 500 some odd billion dollars for real infrastructure, for real roads, real bridges, etc. So what does that have to do with the price of tea in China here in the valley? Because Mr. McGee is absolutely right. I'm really concerned as a property owner because my property taxes did go up because my value of my house went up. So I think what's going to end up happening with this ordinance that was just passed, that if you guys don't get this if you don't get a portion of this $4.1 million that's coming to Alaska, then I'm going to get it in the shorts. So I'm really having a problem with that.
Okay.
As to real
Three minutes.
amount.
Sorry, the bill's
Yes,
just
I
not
want to
working.
talk about
Sorry.
the sales tax, the gas tax, and I'm an absolute no on that one.
Okay, James Mills. James Mills, still with us? How about Garn Foster? Garn Foster, any telephonics? Okay, we have a telephonic caller, so go ahead on the telephone, please.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Dixon, D-I-C-K-S-O-N. I would like to address the near $1 million PETA protest pipe, otherwise known as the Burma Road Underpass. You are creating a destination, a magnet for PETA protesters. It will be easy to find and will provide shelter for protesters in bad weather. You are purposely converging ATVs, snowmobiles, and fast, silent dog teams, which are all moving at accelerated speeds with skiers, walkers, and bikers. None of them will be able to see who or what is on the other side of the tunnel barreling down on them. Who will pay for the state troopers that would be needed to ensure a safe way for all with the pipe every time there is a race? Nobody passing through your PETA protest pipe will be able to see enough to ensure anyone's safety. The map set on the table for visitors last week is a false representation of Khyber Pass. Lorraine Fortner Welch interviewed more than 70 Big Lake pioneers, in addition to researching historical documents for her book, Big Lake, Alaska Beginnings, published in 2002. Maps in her book show Khyber Pass working south just beyond the Burma Road School, traveling directly below Anna Lake, then passing directly below 7 Mile Lake, past the Cicera Homestead, connecting to the old Homesteaders Road and on to Connect. Charles Cicera Jr. explained and mapped the early roads for Ms. Welch during an extensive interview he and his wife participated in with her at Talen's store. Khyber Pass never crossed our property. Another map in our book shows the Iditarod Trail crossing north of us at Steffen Lake. Many other maps also declare Steffen Lake as a crossing point of the 1912 Alaska Road Commission of Realignment. One of the Iditarod mushers who has repeatedly spoken to this assembly in favor of this disastrous project is the one who called my husband at work and threatened to plow down our property. Another musher who spoke to you last week has a criminal record. He was convicted of 25 counts of failing to provide humane animal care to his dog, which he starved, 13 counts of interfering with an animal control officer for hiding emaciated dogs, and 1 count of animal cruelty for a dog found dead in a ravine off his main dog yard. Multiple dead dogs were on the property. In addition to being starved, some of the dogs had untreated injuries and parasites. Several of the dogs were tied to gang lines, which only allowed 12 to 15 inches for movement. The actions of this assembly to install a near $1 million underpass on Burma Road are aiding, perpetuating, and encouraging these people to continue their selfish, greedy, and cruel deeds, in addition to misrepresenting Alaska's history. Thank you.
Let's see, any other telephonics? Anybody else in the audience wish to speak? Come forward, ma'am.
Once again, thank you. My name is Jackie Ivy Goforth. The Jackie Ivy is a romance writer. I have like 100 works out. I'm a best-selling author worldwide. The Goforth is a retired postal manager. I'm an EAS 20, that's executive administrative salary. And one job I held was manager of delivery and customer service programs for the entire state of Alaska. And I had to know all the rules and regulations and everything that had to be followed, including the Hatch Act. And I found it very interesting today, as I was listening as an observer, to hear an assembly person sound out 2 names of people who are going to be on the ballot upcoming for mayor. And they sounded like a campaign push for one of them when the name was mentioned twice in a very good fashion. Now, I happen to know which assembly person that is, and I happen to have my eyebrows raised at that because that seems to be a violation of campaign ethics. And I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the assembly member who did so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other telephonics? Anybody else in the audience wish to speak? Sir, come on forward. Welcome. State your name for the record.
Richard Clifford, and I would just like to talk about this bond package that you guys amended during tonight's meeting. 3 of these line items were cut, 2 by $2 million and 1 by $4.55 million. My question, and I guess it would be to you, Mr. Mayor, or the city manager, or borough manager, excuse me. The other approximately 18, 17 items that are still on there, why weren't they considered? And what was the process to cut a lot of these by almost half, but by millions of dollars? This isn't chump change that just got pulled out of the budget. As an observer, to me, it looks almost like a cheesy car salesman tactic for the citizens and the taxpayers of the borough, to where you present us with a $73 million bond package, and then it's reduced like that, so you guys can make the claim that you are cutting the budget. But really, why was that money there in the first place if it seems like it was just a couple of words back and forth and you were able to cut $4.4 million, over half of the budget out of a project, or $2 million out of another one? And I appreciate the efforts made on the Lakes Boulevard project and the different reports, but why wasn't this done with the other reports? Thank you.
Well, I'll just say it is the job of the assembly to listen on a road bond package, to consult with staff, consult with engineers, consult with the manager. And I think there was a lot of that. The public hearing was continued for 2 weeks, so there was a lot of that discussion, and some of the issues were brought forward, and they looked at the budgeting for certain projects and felt like they could be put in at a different number. And if somebody wanted to move to totally delete a project, they could do so. And we heard that once or twice tonight. So that's part of the process. And of course, it's at a public hearing, and that's how it works. So, okay, anybody else want to speak tonight on audience participation? Any more telephonics? I'm going to close out audience participation at this point in time. We'll go to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, was there anything pulled, by the way?
There wasn't, Mr.
Nothing
Mayor.
pulled, so go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 21086, a resolution directing staff to assist the Glacier View community in updating the 2008 Glacier View Comprehensive Plan and 2006 Sheep Mountain Subdistrict Comprehensive Plan, and to review and update the Glacier View Special Land Use District. AM 2180, request approval to extend period of performance under HDL Engineering Consultants, LLC, contract number 21087P to December 31st, 2021 for the Talkeetna Wastewater Treatment Plant Upgrades Phase 1 project.
Ms. Bovee,
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
any objection? Hearing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. There's no unfinished business, no vetoes. Introductions, Madam Clerk.
Introduction for public hearing on September 7th is Ordinance 21088 with accompanying Resolution 21088, Ordinance 21089 with accompanying Resolutions 21089 and 2190.
Ms. Bovee,
I move to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for September 7, 2021.
any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that legislation is introduced. The vacancy report, Ms. Bovee.
I move to confirm the following mayoral recommendations. Commission on Salaries and Emoluments, Marcio Brumsky, Matthew Beck. Planning Commission, Richard Allen. North Colony RSA number 23, Austin Grimes.
Any objection to the vacancy report? Hearing no objection, that vacancy report is approved. No new business, no referrals. We have a reconsideration. Madam Clerk, please read the legislation.
Ordinance 21068, an ordinance approving the land classification of certain borough-owned lands proposed for inclusion in the 2021 competitive sealed bid land sale and future land sales, and classification of a parcel to be retained for public recreation purpose.
Mr. Tu, do you have a motion to reconsider?
Yes. So I move to amend ordinance 21-06.
You have to move to reconsider first.
Okay, yes, I move to reconsider.
Okay, he's moving to reconsider ordinance 21068. Any discussion on the first part, the motion to reconsider? Any objection to the reconsideration? Anybody object? Hearing none, reconsideration is accepted. Now, Mr. Tu.
Okay, I move to amend ordinance 21-068 and IM 21-137 by inserting the following property into the comprehensive sealed bid land sale. Parcel, no, do I say parcel number 21-15? Do you need to know all that?
Yes.
Okay. Parcel number 21-15, which is 2604 West, 31D003 Talkeetna Road, milepost 12, 4.82 acres, general purpose, and minimum bid of $28,900.
Okay, that motion's on the floor. Mr. Sumner?
Yeah, so I did vote to pull this before, but Actually, on further consideration, I think it's probably not the best time to sell this parcel. If you look on the MLS, it's just saturated with large parcels in Talkeetna. So we really are not going to get top dollar right now. I mean, you could scroll through and there's a substantial amount of large parcels for sale in Talkeetna right now. So you're kind of putting something into an already flooded market there.
Okay, other discussion? He's asking to have this piece of land put back on the sale. Any objection to Mr. Two's motion? Okay, we have objections. Madam Clerk, please conduct a vote.
Yes, sells it, huh?
Assemblymember Yunt.
No objection.
So the Yunt, no, okay.
No.
Are you
No
voting
objection.
yes or no? I need a yes or a no, sorry.
Yes, sells it.
No objection to Moki's amendment.
So that's a yes.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Assemblymember Hale?
I was under the same impression as Assemblymember Young. I will vote yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Sumner, Nowers, and Bovee opposed.
Okay, that Talkeetna piece of property is back on the sale list. Mr. Sumner.
I move to amend ordinance 21-068 and IM 21-137 by deleting parcel number 21-23 milepost 93 Parks Highway west of Caswell Lakes subdivision from the land sale.
Okay, I think you're gonna make it. I think you're gonna make the Caswell Road Service area quite happy. So you want that off the sale list, correct? Everybody understand that? It's a piece of property in the Caswell area.
What? Was that the other property that was on the same deal?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So, and it's pretty much similar. I don't think we're really gonna get a heck of a lot of money for it. On further consideration, their subdivision's got a lot of substandard lots. They're pretty densely packed together and they may actually benefit from some park green space. I don't know about this sand storage thing. I'm not a big fan of that, but it may be beneficial to retain it for a public purpose on this one.
Okay, so this would take it off the sale list, is what?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Hale.
may I ask what the assembly member of that district feels about this?
Ms. Bovee.
I think it should be retained for public purpose and not sold.
Okay, any further discussion?
So is that a yes or a no?
Yes, I support Assemblymember Sumner's amendment.
She doesn't want it on the sale list. Any further discussion and debate? Any objection to passing Mr. Sumner's? Okay, there is objection, so Madam Clerk, please have him vote.
Yes, selling it again, or yes,
The motion on the floor is to take it off the list. Do we need to revote?
So yes, so take it off the list.
Are you good with what you put in? Assemblymember Two?
I just changed it again. Yep. So yes.
You were able to change it,
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
Didn't know that.
yes allows us to sell it, yes? Or no?
A yes takes it off the list for sale and it gets retained. Assemblymember Yunt.
Yes.
Assemblymember Hale.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Two opposed.
Okay, so Mr. Sumner's motion to take that Caswell property off the sale list has passed. Nothing further on the reconsideration?
I call the question, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, the main motion. Any objection to pass an ordinance 21-068 as amended?
Hang on, what is the main motion?
An ordinance approving the land classification of certain borough-owned lands proposed for inclusion in the 2021 competitive sealed bid land sale and future land sales, and classification of parcel be retained for public recreation purpose.
It's the adoption of ordinance 21068, Assemblymember Hale.
Right, with the, as amended.
As amended, exactly.
Roger that. Thank you.
Okay, any objection to pass an ordinance 21068 as amended? Seeing and hearing none?
No
Ordinance-
objection from me.
Okay, ordinance 21068 passes. Comments? Mr. Spropoulos,
No comment.
Mr. Manager,
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, Mr. McKee.
You know, most of the people that are up on this dais, I had a chance to see your pre-election that you were told the citizens what you were going to do. And every single one that I looked at said, that person, if you vote for me, will control costs and maintain the property tax. It's kind of interesting to me.
Talking about me?
Huh?
Are you talking about me or who are you talking about?
I'm talking about all of them.
All of us, okay.
Yeah.
I see, I feel better now.
All I'm saying is people should go back and read what they promised the voters.
Well, I mean, that's pretty
okay.
normal, and normal in every election, isn't it? Okay. Mr. Sumner.
I would say in answer to Mr. McKee, we did lower the property tax mill rate the last two budgets. And really, if you wanted to propose a different ordinance where you just say the mill rate given to the schools shall be 6 mil, that's a different matter than the school district shall receive 60% of the proposed property tax rate. That, in my mind, is almost a guarantee that the property tax rates will remain higher than they are now. And, you know, I very much, it's not so much the spending, although you can't spend money that you don't tax, but it's the tax that is very unpopular. And to tax money and just save it is, it should be the most unpopular thing you can do. So I don't think we want to incentivize the school district to save a bunch of taxpayer money and not spend it in anticipation of future revenue reductions. I think we should target the lowest possible property tax that we can get. And incentivizing them to want to raise the property tax is not going to be the right approach for that. So, thank you.
Okay, let's go down to Mr. 2. Okay, Ms. Nowers.
A question for the attorney. I just wanted to respond to the gentleman's kind of question, you know, if we put a $61 million bond forward, which has to be approved by the voters, if the voters approve $61 million in bonding authority, we can't unilaterally decide a project, oh, it costs extra, we're going to bond for 73 million. We are locked into what voters approved. Is that correct?
Correct. The authorization is for the total amount of that bond package. Now, you can move money amongst projects, but only those projects on the list. So you can't go outside those projects, and you cannot exceed that total amount.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to hopefully that clarifies. And I think road estimates are not a science. And if one of these comes back and when they get into it, they say it's, you know, it's a $12 million project, this assembly is going to have to reconsider where that goes. But the overall amount would be what the voters approved. I was super happy with the discussion tonight. I just note there was 4 people killed on the Parks Highway in the last week, and we are behind on our roads. So I think we have to continue to discuss how we keep up on them and how we make it safe. I don't think we do enough as a borough to think about how development is actually impacting that. We have traffic flowing onto roads that it wasn't intended for. And that, just building more roads doesn't always solve it. I think there has to be some thought about how it goes in. And I just think we need to, as an assembly, keep pushing that in a variety of ways. Super happy about the Arctic Winter Games money coming through, and appreciate the appointment of Amy Spargo. That's a really big deal, and excited about that. And then, as mentioned, the Alaska State Fair starts on Friday. So that means this cold, snowy weather is going to go away. The sun's going to come out. It's going to be 70, and I hope everybody gets a chance to go eat some good fair food and enjoy the fun over there.
Mr. Yacht, comments, please?
No, sir. You guys enjoy your evening.
Okay, Mr. Hale.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say, the infrastructure thing is the biggest thing. It's the one thing that the local government does well. And I think that it's important that we maintain our infrastructure and that we improve on it. And I love the fact that all of our assembly members came together tonight to make that happen. And that's a good thing. So I would like to thank all my assembly members tonight for making sure that we are investing in our infrastructure tonight. So thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bovee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to send condolences to the families who lost loved ones in the accidents on the Parks Highway. And I absolutely want to thank the responders who worked an absolutely nightmarish weekend. Thank you.
Okay, well, it was a good meeting tonight. I think we did some great work on that school bond package. I think it came out with the right number and changes. I'm hoping those numbers are correct. And we'll be able to do those projects in a healthy and safe fashion with those numbers. So very pleased with that. Didn't surprise me at all on the sales tax. We probably should have had those separated before tonight even and took that one away. I'm confident that we'll be able to fund the road bond package. I think it's going to take some innovation. It didn't surprise me on the school funding. It's a tough issue. I think the parallel, and I don't agree with you, Mr. Summer, on that take. The tax cap is 10.5. At 9.98 or tax cap at 9.6. You're not leaving very much mills for the borough to operate and to have a capital program going. That's kind of the issue. And so it would basically have given the manager a little bit more flexibility and fashioning a budget based on what's going on down at the state with school bond debt and things like that. That's kind of the tough thing right now. I was 100% for 6.3 mils when it came out because we weren't under this pressure from the state on school bond debt. But I mean, I think, just listening to the borough attorney and the manager, that you can still make that decision during budgeting if need be. And you might have to do that. And I would suggest that you should do that in case where the borough suffers far more than somebody else, the school district. And you don't want to get it too lopsided. But, I'll say this about that Burma Road crossing too. That route was litigated. It was a multi-week case that went for DNR for the state of Alaska, went through the Superior Court, and then it went up to the Supreme Court. Those issues on the location were litigated. Now, I used to be an attorney at one point in time. I understand the folly and sometimes the frustration with court cases, but I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'm positive on where that route is, where that crossing is. The old crossing, they were coming down Prospector Road, driving dog teams on a road to cross a road. That's one of the fundamental no-nos with the dog team. You just don't have the control. And if that road is ever improved, which it would be improved because there's growth out there, that totally takes that trail away. So yes, they're going to realign because they've never been able to use that trail. So many times property owners have blocked correct trails. And there's more than one trail out there, by the way, that have easements. And sometimes we like them, we don't like them. I got an easement right up behind my place. And that's just the way it is. So and that person that called in that basic filth about dog mushers and PETA, You know, I was really objected to that. And, but court cases are where it's at. That's how we solve problems and solve locations. And I'm pretty sure the borough attorney's office, our staff and stuff will have it surveyed, have the monuments put in so that everybody knows the exact trail location. Yes, that trail may have to be opened up for it's usable because we're talking about the future, not the past. And maybe it'll correct some of those other uses of some of those other trails, which would probably be a positive thing for everybody. But safety is sooner or later, somebody's going to get hit and they're going to get hit bad on Burma Road. And yes, I've been out there a million times. I've crossed it dozens of times with dog teams. I've crossed with snowmobiles. I know exactly where it is. Sometimes it seems remote and unused, but it is not so. Somebody's going to get hit. Somebody's going to get killed or maimed bad. And that's what we're trying to correct here. And also that's a historic trail. You know, Kinnick lost the restart of the Iditarod race. I think with this tunnel, Kinnick, which is a home of the restart, may have a chance to get it back, and I'd support that. You could restart in Willow and run to Kinnick and then back out on that historic trail with that tunnel as it is. It'd be good for everybody. And so with that, we will close out the meeting. What is it, Madam Clerk? 9:42 p.m. Adjourned.